Ukraine does not ask us to fight for her, only to arm her valiant soldiers to push Russia back inside its own borders. Ukraine's soldiers have recaptured half its stolen territory, armed them to finish the job. For those who may naively think America can sit on the sidelines and seek isolation, please know this old adage: if you take no interest in foreign affairs will find you. Recall Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. 83 years ago, the United States, caught in a stupor of isolationism, closed its eyes as the rest of the world fell into deep conflict. There is no killing field on earth like Ukraine. Millions upon millions upon millions of innocent people have died at the hands of deadly dictators, Lenin, Stalin, and now Putin. If Putin is permitted to conquer Ukraine, he will not stop there. He's promised that. Support from the American people will ensure victory for Ukraine, with the free world girding liberty's shield. Recall the ancient words of Ukraine's poet laureate, Taras Shevchenko, who died almost 2 centuries ago in a ghastly prison. The time is near when on Ukraine's plains a shackled folk will burst its chains. Blessed be your children in these lands. By touch of your toil-hardened hands, day of hope arrive, Ukrainian glory shall revive. Today is that day.
Всім добрий вечір.
On behalf of the brave.
On behalf of every father and every mother.
Wings for freedom. On behalf of our warriors.
And paves the way for a new history.
Okay, so welcome to Tochnyi Weekly, everyone. We definitely appreciate you tuning in. Please do like and subscribe. Like the stream and subscribe to Tochnyi for more updates and accurate information about the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So to start today, I'm going to be doing a news report. That'll be followed by our German aid to Ukraine report. That will be followed by an interview with an excellent guest that we have for you today. And finally, we'll have a discussion with Andrew Perpetua about the current situation on the front line of Ukraine. So I will jump straight into the news. According to a report from the Russian state-owned news agency TASS on April 27th, operations at a Russian oil refinery in Slavyansk on Kuban, located in Krasnodar Krai, were partially halted following an alleged drone attack by Ukraine. As per a source within Ukraine's security and defense forces speaking to the Kyiv Independent, the Security Service of Ukraine conducted a drone strike targeting the Ilsky and Slavyansk oil refineries, as well as a military airfield in Krasnodar Krai during the night of April 27th. Eduard Trudnev, the security director of the Slavyansk ECO group, informed TASS that the refinery's operations were partially suspended due to a significant fire caused by the intrusion of 10 drones into the plant. He mentioned potential concealed damages and indicated that relevant agencies are currently working on the situations. However, Trudnev did not specify the exact nature or duration of the suspension. The source from the security sector told the Kyiv Independent that the drones targeted crucial technical installations at the refinery, leading to fires and the evacuation of personnel. Radio Liberty's Russian branch has released satellite images illustrating the aftermath of a Ukrainian drone assault on a Rosneft oil storage facility located in the village of Razdorovo within the Smolensk Oblast, occurring on April 24th. In addition to the Razdorova incident, a Rosneft refinery situated in Yartseva, another locality within the oblast, also came under attack on the same day. Information from a source cited to Ukrainska Pravda indicates that the drone strikes on the oil depots were carried out by the security services of Ukraine, and that the depots housed approximately 26,000 cubic meters of Russian fuel and lubricants. The resulting explosions triggered significant fires, prompting the evacuation of personnel. The production of electronic warfare systems in Ukraine has seen a notable increase of 40 to 50% since the onset of the full-scale invasion. Anatoly Krapachinsky, the deputy director of Piranha Tech, a Ukrainian company specializing in EW systems, provided the assessment. He highlighted a significant uptick in production. Maria Berlinska, the director of the Aerial Reconnaissance Support Center, remarked that Ukraine's production of electronic warfare systems is currently progressing at an unprecedented pace. However, she noted that even with the accelerated production, the current output levels fail to meet even 5% of the frontline's current requirements. Meanwhile, Ola Donets, who heads the Electronic Warfare and Signals Intelligence Department at Brave One, which is a government-run cluster for defense tech development, stated that the platform has united over 50 manufacturers of electronic warfare devices, predominantly of short range, within the last year. Donets revealed that the number of prototypes for electronic warfare systems has surpassed 100, which is a considerable increase from 10 recorded in June of 2023. Out of the prototypes, 9 systems so far have undergone testing and codification, which is required to assess readiness for mass production at the Ministry of Defense. The remaining prototypes are currently undergoing similar procedures. The Defense Procurement Agency of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense recently acquired 4,000 DJI Mavic drones for $15 million, marking the first such purchase. This announcement was made available on the Ministry of Defense's website. This was done following competitive bidding on the ProZorro platform. The Defense Procurement Agency finalized contracts for the procurement of 3,000 Mavic 3E drones and 1,000 DJI Mavic 3T drones, each equipped with accessories. The average prices for each unmanned aviation systems under the contracts are around $3,200 US dollars for DJI Mavic 3Es and around $4,900 for the 3Ts. They also contain batteries and chargers for each unit. So that puts the total cost at around 575 million hryvnia, which again is the figure I quoted in USD, 15 million USD. The initial batches of unmanned aircraft systems have already been delivered to military units. The drone acquisitions are part of the Ministry of Defense's march to purchase a total of 15,000 Mavic drones valued at around 80 million. Like they have a fund for 80 million to acquire these drones. And just real quick, because this word ProZorro was mentioned quite a few times in the report, I just wanted to mention like what is ProZorro. So there's a group of Harvard economists that wrote a paper on it. So I'm just going to read the abstract. This is like a direct quote from the abstract of the report, the article that was written by these Harvard economists. So just to explain what ProZorro is. After the 2014 uprising, widespread corruption under former Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych, a group of civic activists and data experts decided to overhaul government procurement. Their efforts produced an open source e-procurement system called ProZorro, which is transparency in Ukrainian. It's a community of citizens and government buyers. Dozoro in Ukrainian means watchdog, and it analyzes all the contracting data, flags high-risk deals and irregularities, and reports them to government authorities. It was created with the help of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development and the U.S. Agency for International Development. And it's helped Ukraine save around $6 billion in public funds since October 2017, when a study on this was conducted. And that was in 2021. The study going up to 2017, it was conducted by the U.S. Center for the Strategy on Countering Corruption. So it's been a very effective platform. Seems to be working out very well for Ukraine. And now they're buying drones with it. Woohoo. Okay, next topic is going to be aid. Italy has revealed plans to formalize an agreement with Ukraine and the UNESCO Cultural Agency concerning the reconstruction efforts in Odessa, with a particular focus on restoring the Transfiguration Cathedral in the city, which sustained damage from a Russian missile strike. The information that I'm reporting comes from Reuters, and as they're citing the Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani. Man, we have an Italian here today. I feel bad. And also European Pravda. Tajani disclosed that the agreement is. I have a video of the Restoration Cathedral. Here we go. Tajani disclosed that the agreement is scheduled to be signed on May 15th during a question time session in the lower house of the Italian Parliament. Earlier in February, Italy and UNESCO signed an agreement in Kyiv, pledging $500 million for the restoration of the Transfiguration Cathedral's roof in Odessa. As the G7 presidency will continue to work for a just peace, that's what Tajani affirmed and underscored Italy's commitment to restore the cathedral. Additionally, Tajani highlighted Italy's prioritization for supporting Ukraine's energy infrastructure. In July 2023, Odessa suffered a missile attack from Russia, causing significant damage to the cathedral. And in response, at the time, the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni promptly expressed that the country was ready to contribute to the reconstruction efforts. So they've sort of started to follow through on that now. The U.S. Secretary of Defense has announced that as part of a significant additional aid package totaling $6 billion, Ukraine will receive additional Patriot missiles for air defense systems. Lloyd Austin described this as the largest security assistance package committed to date, following a virtual meeting involving numerous international supporters of Kyiv. The missiles will serve to replenish previously provided Patriot systems. Alongside this, the package includes more munitions for the additional advanced surface-to-air missiles, known as NASAMS, and additional equipment to integrate Western air defense launchers, missiles, and radars into Ukraine's existing weaponry, much of which dates back to the Soviet era. Unlike the $1 billion aid package announced earlier in the week, which included items from U.S. stocks, this latest assistance of the $6 billion package I mentioned previously will be procured from defense industry, meaning it will take longer to reach the battlefield. During a meeting with the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky emphasized the urgent need for Patriot missiles to protect Ukrainian cities. However, Secretary Austin did not commit to sending more U.S. versions of Patriot systems, indicating ongoing discussions with European counterparts on the matter. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has set to unveil a military package worth 500 million British pounds, which is 617 million US dollars, for Ukraine's military during his visit to Poland on April 23rd. According to the British government, this represents the largest ever provision of quote-unquote vital ammunitions from the UK to Ukraine. And the aid bundle encompasses around 400 vehicles, 1,600 munitions, and 4 million rounds of artillery shells, I believe or they say 4 million rounds of ammunition. Sorry, that's probably, could be small arms, I don't know. Sunak emphasized the urgency of supporting Ukraine's armed forces, stating that they need help. The allocated funds will swiftly deliver ammunition, air defense system, drones, and engineering support. And the statement highlights that the drones will be sourced from the UK to bolster domestic defense supply chains. Defense Secretary Grant Shapps echoed similar sentiments, saying that I don't know, they're all just saying it's good. And Sunak is going to visit to Poland, and they want to strengthen UK-Poland ties. And it's expected that Sunak will propose deploying an RAF Typhoon squadron for NATO air policing in Poland next year, although this isn't confirmed yet. During a visit to Ukraine by Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles, the Australian government has unveiled a $100 million US aid package for the country, primarily focused on military assistance. Australia's contribution includes $50 million allocated to military support, with $30 million designated for unmanned aerial systems and $15 million for various critical equipment, such as combat helmets, inflatable boats, footwear, protective masks, and generators. Additionally, the package encompasses the provision of precision air-to-ground munitions and $50 million directed towards short-range air defense systems. While in Ukraine, Marles had meetings with Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal and Deputy Minister of Defense Havrilyuk, and he emphasized Australia's ongoing commitments. Marles expressed their dedication. I don't know. There's always like a long speech from the defense ministers, and I just try to check if there's anything useful in there. This time, not really. Spain has opted to provide a limited quantity of missiles for Patriot air defense systems for Ukraine. Sorry, a lot of aid this week, so I'm just kind of barreling through it. Spain has opted to provide a limited quantity of Patriot missiles, as per announcement by El País in Spain. While Spain has ruled out supplying Patriot launchers, it's agreed to furnish some missiles tailored to the system. And the report was confirmed later by the Spanish Ministry of Defense. Yeah, we'll move on from there. Denmark's government announced it would allocate an additional, and man, Denmark has been stepping up. I don't even know how to describe how much Denmark has been stepping up. Denmark's announced an additional 630 million USD to its Ukraine Aid Fund for military assistance. They stated in the release that they've been one of the most proactive donors, which is totally true. The Ukraine Fund was established to allocate aid to Ukraine between 2023 and 2028. And this latest commitment brings the total fund to about $9.3 billion. The minister also confirmed that they're working very quickly to transfer F-16s to Ukraine, and I'll kind of spare the details, but basically he said they're still aiming to try to deliver the first aircraft to Ukraine by the summer. So I don't know if that lines up with the pilots and whatnot. Maybe we have more experts on that, but that's what the Danish defense minister said. They plan to deliver the first aircraft systems by the summer. And last, in an unexpected, we got an unexpected player jumping in here today. A Swiss parliamentary committee has approved the allocation of 5 billion Swiss francs, which is around 5.5 billion US dollars, in aid to Ukraine as part of a wider set of measures aimed at enhancing the defense capabilities of the neutral nation. This information comes as reported by Reuters. Backed by members of both the center-left and center-right parties, the Security Committee of the Upper House of Parliament endorsed the package, which includes an additional 10 billion francs earmarked for the army, alongside the allocation for Ukraine. Although the plan must still navigate through several parliamentary procedures before being fully enacted into law, it's managed to secure approval by a vote of 8-5, despite opposition from right-wing parties. The parliament issued a statement highlighting that the multi-billion-dollar package is designed to, as an exceptional contribution to Switzerland's security and quote-unquote peace in Europe, particularly in light of Russia's aggression. So now we'll move on to the economy stuff. Sorry, the aid was the longest stuff this week, which is great, right? It's great to see all that aid, right? Since the onset of Russia's full-scale invasion, Ukraine has garnered significant support from international partners, and they've tallied it up, and it's a total of 85.4 billion, which has directly been sent to sustain budget expenditures, according to the Ministry of Finance. Of this total, 11.78 billion has been contributed by partners since the start of 2024, with 73 billion coming from the previous years. Major contributors are, of course, the European Union with about 6.5 billion, Japan with about 2 billion, Canada with about 1 billion, the IMF with about 0.9 billion, the UK with about $500 million. The government bonds in Ukraine have reached 15.6 billion, which bolsters Ukraine's state budget further. On Tuesday, the European Parliament approved the extension of temporary trade liberalization measures for Ukraine with provisions to safeguard EU farmers. The motion garnered support from 428 members of the European Parliament, while 131 opposed it. The legislative text reached a preliminary agreement to suspend import duties and quotas for Ukrainian agricultural products until June 5th, 2025, which again is a continuation of the existing arrangement. According to the statements, they retain the authority to swiftly implement measures should there be any disruptions to the EU market. I don't know. I assume that's aimed at the Polish protests, but I don't know specifically what they're going to do about it, to be honest. They've expressed condemnation before. And they've also included, apparently, as far as I can tell, additional measures to, quote unquote, safeguard EU farmers. They've reinforced measures to include the Commission's ability to trigger emergency brakes for sensitive agricultural products. And things like this, right? So they've renewed it, but with more protections for farmers in the hopes, I think, that there'll be less disruptions through protests like the ones in Poland. According to Serhiy Koretsky, the director of Ukranafta, the company has augmented its reserves and resources by over 3 million tons of oil and 600 million cubic meters of gas due to an extension of existing special permits in Western Ukraine. Koretsky explained that the expansion of the special permit boundaries aims to align them with productive deposits in the fields, and they've already received corresponding orders from the state government and they've received corresponding orders for more permits from the State Service of Geology and Subsoil of Ukraine. These government ministries sometimes have big titles. Specifically, after enlarging the boundaries of the first section increased by over 50%, so they're extraction area includes about 1 square kilometer now. The second section area grew. I don't know. This is all kind of oil talk. And yeah, so basically they're expanding these special permits and they're increasing their oil reserves, which is good. Ukrainian grain exports experienced a decline in March, signaling a potential slowdown for the rest of the year due to a reduced supply and predictions of a smaller harvest. The volume of grain exports in March totaled 5.2 million metric tons, which is down from 5.8 million in the previous month, according to estimates. This drop follows a period of heightened export activity triggered by the establishment of their own corridor in the Black Sea from after Russia's withdrawal from the UN-brokered grain initiative in 2023. The surge in exports was also fueled by large backlogs of grain accumulated by traders, including a surplus from a record high harvest in 2021. So, long story short, right, they had grain that was being bottlenecked, but they were able to open up the Black Sea, right, through destroying the Russian Navy, basically. And as a result, they were able to sell through all that backlog. And now the export totals are going down because, they don't have stored grain anymore. So it's probably a good thing as far as I understand. Like wheat it's not great to store it. It starts to go bad and you're losing money, basically. So, I think it's sort of bad news that they won't get as much money from grain exports, but it's, what can you do about it, really? And let's just go on to the next topic, which is the Chernobyl stuff. So the State Agency of Ukraine on Exclusion Zone Management, of course, the acronym is SAUEZM, announced plans to establish a scientific hub within the Chernobyl exclusion zone involving experts from around the world. This initiative aims to gather new scientific and technical insights into the aftermath of the disaster, studying the impact of radioactive contamination on the environment, human health, and materials. It also seeks to provide a foundation for making informed economic decisions in relevant sectors. In addition to the scientific hub, the ministry has launched initiatives to create a catalog of renewable energy sites and implementing wind, solar, and other energy projects. They're also locating potential areas for small modular reactors. Key priorities include continuing to decommission the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Sorry, Chernobyl. I need to get to the new standard news trend. Managing spent nuclear fuel and ensuring the security of the shelter structure. Right, they built this container structure over it, and overseeing new safe confinement. And they underscore that they have expertise in managing hazardous and radioactive waste and the importance of developing competencies in systems for effective waste management for the rest of the world, right? So there's like a large international initiative now to help teach other people about how to do all these things that they've learned by managing Chernobyl as responsibly as they have. And we'll go to the last topic for this week, which is Don, we've got some news. According to Novaya Gazeta Europe's recent report, Ramzan Kadyrov, the governor of Chechnya, has been diagnosed with pancreatic necrosis, a condition where part of the pancreas dies. This diagnosis dates back to 2019, and Kadyrov has undergone regular treatments, including surgeries at Moscow's Central Clinical Hospital around twice a year. After he got COVID, his health further deteriorated, which is interesting because he literally locked down all of Chechnya like when COVID hit. And his health further deteriorated after that, leading to significant issues with his endocrine system. Subsequent years saw a rapid decline in his health, including kidney failure and an impaired ability to speak. His head's been getting just fatter and fatter, and he's been saying weirder and weirder things. The article suggests that in 2023, his health appeared to worsen, and the Russian authorities orchestrated a PR campaign to deflect attention from his health issues. This campaign included his public appearances with Putin that year, and it was designed to create the impression of vitality. And then there was a scandal involving his son assaulting a prisoner on video, and the accolades of his son. Like, that was all part of the strategy that they cooked up to help make him appear more healthy, or maybe distract from it. In this case. As his health continues to decline, Novaya Gazeta indicates that the Kremlin is contemplating a secession plan for Chechnya, with former Akhmat Battalion Commander Apti Alaudinov being mentioned as a potential successor. Following the publication of the report, the press service from Kadyrov released a video of him in a meeting discussing Chechnya's involvement in a military operation. So hose mad. In the video, Kadyrov appears to have difficulty speaking and moving, raising further concerns about his health. Okay, so that wraps up my news report for this week. Yeah, couldn't have happened to a better guy. Hope for a speedy exit for Kadyrov. So now I think we'll go to the report we have from German aid to Ukraine. He's a bit under the weather for the last couple of weeks, so he has pre-recorded a segment for us very, very kindly. So over to you, pre-recorded German aid to Ukraine.
Hello, guys. Probably a lot of you remember that I had surgery on Monday. I'm feeling a lot better, just for information. It's just that I'm having daily pain, and I just took my pills like about 2 hours ago, and I'm feeling very sleepy, and I don't know if I can continue with the stream for so long, so I did the safest option and pre-recorded my segment. So just that you don't wonder why this is a pre-recorded segment, and I'm probably still in the stream. I just didn't know if I can continue for 2 hours, about 2 hours. So I didn't want you to miss out on it. So yeah, just so you don't wonder. But yeah, let's start with my weekly segment. The Danish Refugee Council in Ukraine announced on Monday that the German Federal Foreign Office has financed at least 2 GCS 200 demining machines for them to do demining work in the Mykolaiv Oblast. One GCS 200 has already been delivered, while another one is expected to be delivered next month. On the same day, during a working visit in the Ukrainian capital Kyiv, Hamburg's Mayor Dr. Peter Tschechner, and that's a real hard name even for me as a German, Tschechner, see, it's really hard, handed over 3 buses for passenger transport. A further 6 buses are ready to be transferred to Kyiv in the near future. On Wednesday, the Ukrainian Minister of Economy, Yulia Sviridenko, I'm very sorry, I also butchered that name, announced that the German Federal Foreign Office has co-financed 10 new pickups, which are now used by Ukrainian Zeppers of the State Special Transport Service of Ukraine. The UK and Germany have published a joint understanding on Wednesday and agreed on cooperating on the support of Ukrainian helicopters, including armament, maintenance, and training. I personally think that this refers primarily to the Westland Sea Kings, of which the UK has delivered 3 to Ukraine already last year. And Germany plans to deliver a total of 6 in the coming days of weeks. The UK and Germany will also work together to maximize the effect of the German Immediate Action on Air Defense initiative and the International Fund for Ukraine. Nothing has yet officially announced about the UK actually joining the initiative, the German one, but I find it hard to imagine that the UK would want to support Germany in maximizing the effect of the initiative, but not contribute any funds to the or equipment itself. That would be, to be honest, a little bit weird. Both countries also seek to increase joint ventures and investments in defense maintenance and production to further strengthen the Ukrainian military-industrial base. Speaking of the German Immediate Action on Air Defense initiative, on Friday, the initiative got 2 new members. First, Belgium will contribute a total of 200 million euros, which makes them currently the top contributor to the initiative when we exclude Germany's own contribution, a Patriot battery. And second, Canada will also contribute to the initiative. This was announced by the German Ministry of Defense. However, it is not yet known how much Canada will contribute to the initiative, but it's likely to be a low double-digit million sum. The German initiative to provide Ukraine with more air defense in the short term in particular has therefore currently pooled 350 million euros and also a new Patriot battery, which comes from Germany. Spain also agreed to send a few, I think a low double-digit number of Patriot missiles, but it's not officially known yet if it's a contribution to the German initiative to provide air defense to Ukraine. We know for sure that it's done to German pressure. I believe Joseph talked about it. Media reports are saying it's pressure by NATO countries and European countries as well. But I think the main pressure came from Germany just because of we announced this initiative. We want to contribute air defense to Ukraine, and it was also clear and made public officially that Germany has spoken with Spain and wrote them a letter, as they did it with many other or most other NATO members about this initiative to get them to deliver air defense to Ukraine. So just wanted to point that out. I just don't know if it's part of the German initiative. So just that you know. And as a last item of this week, Leipzig's public transport company is donating 26 Tatra vehicles. For those who don't know this, these are old trams to strengthen the transport network in Dnipro. The first 7 vehicles have already been loaded and are on their way to Ukraine, while the remaining vehicles will follow in the coming weeks. Yeah. And for those who are interested, these vehicles got last modernized in I believe it was 1992, and they are still being used in Leipzig. So they receive regular maintenance. Of course they are old, but they're used very on a regular basis. So everything is fine, and Dnipro is can use them very efficiently. I'm very sure about this. Yeah, so that's my segment for this week, and go on to the next segment. Thanks.
Okay, so I think now we will turn it over to Daniela to introduce our fantastic guest for our awesome interview. So Daniela, over to you.
Hi, thank you very much, Joseph, and good evening. Today is a very big pleasure. Cristiano Tinazzi, who is a freelance journalist, an Italian freelance journalist. I would like to underline these things because I'm Italian, but he has been one of the many but very strong voices about the war in Ukraine, especially for the Italian public. But he has also a very long experience in war journalism from several conflicts, and I just from Africa, Syria, and he also in Ukraine since the start in 2014. And he did a very nice work in also reconstructing few events that probably for the international audience are not very famous, but regarding the controversial killing of an Italian freelance journalist. And he did recently also published a wonderful book. Hope that he would like to speak about in today. And at this point, I would like just to give you the word, Cristiano. Sorry, because I'm very emotional about introducing you today. And my first question essentially would be to give us just a brief introduction about your experience in Ukraine, how your work in Ukraine has started since the beginning, and which is your first most vivid memory of the first few months of the war. Thank you, Cristiano, for being here today. I think you are muted, Cristiano.
We cannot hear you, Cristiano.
I think he's trying to rejoin. I'm not sure.
Yeah. It worked before Erland yesterday, yes.
Oh yeah, and he was. We could hear him fine just before the stream.
Yeah, he came and ran a mic check. It sounded great.
So I guess Cristiano, if you can hear us, just try and rejoin, and then we'll.
Alex, are there any other details about his career that you might want to share with us?
About Cristiano's work?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So basically, sorry.
Go on, Alex. Go on, Alex, please. Thank you.
No, I just wanted to say that I've been following Cristiano for, I guess, more than 1 year now on Twitter, and I appreciate his work on field. He's been on many battlefields around the world, but of course now the main one is Ukraine. And for the Italian audience, it's really important the work that they did with this documentary, which is called Crossfire, which is also available in English on his own website.
Hello.
And which reconstructs, perhaps now Cristiano is back. I hope so. And Cristiano, yeah, Cristiano, I think we can hear you. Try to speak. I believe I hear something very low. No audio. Okay, I will go on. And so in the documentary called Crossfire.
Hi, do you hear me?
Hi, Cristiano. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm here. Sorry. So, what did you ask me before about my first experience in Ukraine?
Yeah,
Yes,
that was the
yeah.
question about an introduction to yourself and.
Yeah, I'm a war reporter. I mean, you just told to everybody what's my profession. I started to cover wars in Middle East, especially in the MENA area, so Middle East and North Africa areas, and I covered the Iraqi war, the Syrian civil war, and Libya, all the revolutions in North Africa, and then Afghanistan, and then all the evolution of the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq, and then also in the Philippines, the siege of Marawi in the south, in the Mindanao Island against the Islamic State and their local allies. And yeah, I went in Ukraine the first time. It was in the 2015, not at the start, because I was in Iraq at that time. And it's curious because the first time I went on the so-called separatist controlled area, and I went there just because I wanted to understand why some Italians were fighting on the Putin side. And so I went there to do some reportage about them, and also I met also the French guys, all from far right area that they were come from, and they were fighting side by side with some communists, some Stalinists, the same shit that sorry for the word, but it's the same shit as today. And that was my first experience. That then I went many times in do you hear me? No.
Yeah, Cristiano, I think the audio is too low, so try to reconnect with the phone, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very sorry about that, guys. Maybe you can continue,
Yeah.
Daniele.
Yeah, no. I want to give some context, and so the main one of the reason why I'm very happy that Cristiano joined us. As you listen from his his own voice. Essentially, one of the biggest interests for a lot of Italian journalists, also from Parliament and the Secret Services, the beginning in 2014-15. There was a lot of involvement of different part of the extremism of the political spectrum, both far right and far left, on the side of the separatists, and was very reason for each side. And his work and his investigation and also his reporting has been fundamental to uncover this type of phenomena. And nowadays, of course, his work is about documenting the war, what's going on. But in many occasions, I think he's back. No. Yeah, this is one of his report for La Sette, which is a quite big news Italian channel outlet. Hopefully for the general discussion, because quite often here on Tochnyi we discuss about this information, and I think his testimony is very important to understand how this information is a real weapon for Putin regime, but in general for any regime. And now I give the way to Cristiano in case.
Can you hear us, Cristiano? We can't hear you. What a pity, because the audio was working fine just half an hour ago.
Yeah, whatever you change, Cristiano, if you remember, try to turn back to what you had, and hopefully it will work.
Okay, in the meantime, perhaps we can still keep talking about his work. And I was trying to
you were talking about
Crossfire, his documentary, which is about the killing of an Italian and a Russian reporters near to Severodonetsk, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken, but in Donbas in 2014. And back then, a Ukrainian soldier was accused, more or less without proofs, and sentenced to years of prison in Italy. Cristiano did an amazing work. He went on site where the killing happened, collected proof and testimonies which none of the parties involved in the trial did back during the trial, and had proof that it was impossible to demonstrate who was the person who killed those two reporters. And by the way, it was for sure not the Ukrainian soldier that was sentenced. And for your information, the Ukrainian soldier is no longer in prison. He was liberated a few years ago, and now he is back in Ukraine, free, and is defending the country. So again, if you go on Cristiano website, you will find the link and information to be able to see the documentary, which is available both in Italian and in English. It's a very good one.
Yeah, and also is thank you, Alex, Alex, for introducing these, because this type of, let's say, this inquiry, this judiciary inquiry was very much done in Italy, and also in the very first few months of the war. Several, I would say useful idiot, but there are, at this point, these are people that have a precise agenda, use his to justify or to accuse or to reiterate propaganda like the Nazis and another Nazis
You can
formation.
sometimes on Twitter you can still see a fake picture going around with guys pointing a gun at the end of a person and saying that the person, the victim there, is the Italian reporter 1 second before he was killed by Ukrainian Nazis, which is totally wrong. Is not true at all. That's another person, that's another situation, and the killing happened in a different way. So that gives you a dimension of how fakes and propaganda work on social media, and we are all aware about that.
We have back Cristiano. Maybe this is the third and the good. Cristiano, can you hear us?
Unfortunately, we can't hear you, Cristiano.
From the audience, someone say that who has the control of the chat can adjust or maybe alter members. I don't know if you, we may try.
I really don't think that it's working that way, because in Restream, the Ukrainian platform we are using for streaming, we can only change the name of the guests or remove the guests. We can of course increase the volume or decrease the volume of the microphones of these guests, but it's already at max level for us, and it's just not working. And I remember actually 2 weeks ago, probably some others remember that here too. Before my stream or I started my segment, everything was fine. And during my segment, my mic just crashed completely.
Hello.
And I went Optimus
Oh.
Prime and
We got him. We got him.
We got him, guys. Okay, I'm
Houston, we have
silent.
done it. Amazing, Cristiano. Happy.
Bentornato.
Niente, non si riesce.
No, we can hear you.
Cristiano, we can hear you.
Cristiano, we can hear you. I think he cannot hear us.
Non capisco proprio, cazzo, come è possibile.
A cruel irony.
La Madoska, Porca troia. This is when we want to swear in Italian, right? Oh, God. Yeah. Okay, I suggest that we start with an update from Andrew. I will call Cristiano on the phone, and Andrew, are you able to share screen? And then we can take Cristiano afterwards.
Let me work on the sharing screen. Give me a second.
Yeah. because this is super sad. We prepared this interview, and Cristiano is really amazing, so we would really like to make this work.
Yeah,
Do we have any questions from chat about
sure we
all
can.
that news? Yeah, sorry, Daniel. I think you're going to say. I'm sure we can work something out. We definitely can. We'll reschedule if we have to. Go ahead, Daniela. Did you want to say something?
You are mirrored.
Okay, I'll try to work on that.
Someone asked, does the tram in Leipzig have the same gauge as the one in Dnipro, or does it need to be adapted? I would assume not, but I have no idea, to be honest with you. Does anyone know?
I actually also don't know. I looked the press release up just because of this question, and now they didn't say anything about some adjustments being made or something else. But even if they would have to do it, I don't think that's such a big of an issue. Otherwise,
see
they wouldn't
Cristiano.
deliver them, right? So yeah, just to answer this question.
Cristiano, are you with us?
Hey,
Hi. Yeah, we can hear you very
hi.
well.
I'm sorry, but technical problems now. I don't know why, but tonight it's really difficult to communicate.
Thank you for being back then.
Okay,
you can start.
I suggest you can try and repeat what you said in the beginning. We could barely hear you then.
Yeah, I'm just was saying that I started to cover the situation in Ukraine in 2015. That was my first time because I used to cover wars in Middle East, North Africa before, and in that time in 2014 I was in Iraq covering the evolution of the Islamic State. So my first time in Ukraine was in 2015, and I went to the first for the first time I went to the so-called separatist controlled area. Just because I wanted to do some reportages about the foreign fighters and understanding why there were some Italians, but also other Europeans that were fighting side by side with the Putin soldiers and their local allies. So, and then I met there some French people. There was a unit of French people there. Covered that 95% of them they came from the far right area, so they were basically they were fascists. But I met also some Spanish people, and that the people was Stalinist. Yeah, they were Stalinists. So it was the same. I mean, the same mix that you can find also today. There are a lot of. In Italy, we call them rossobruni. They are just red and brown or black mixed ideology. And yeah, then I went back to Kenya in 2017 and 2019, 18, and I did some long form reportage for the Swiss television about Ukraine. And yeah, and in 2019 I started to cover an investigation in Italy about the killing of this journalist Andrea Rocchelli and his fixer, who was Andrei Mironov, who was very famous in Italy, but not only in Italy. He was a human rights defender, and he was an anti-Putin, basically. And they were killed in Slavyansk in 2014, in May 2024. And yeah, as everybody saw in that period, I mean, in Italy there was some kind of narrative mixed with propaganda, basically Russian propaganda, Most of the media in that period were against Ukraine. There were a lot of the misinformation, disinformation. Basically, the Ukrainians were just bad guys, basically far-right people, and that were used to kill journalists just because they didn't want journalists on the ground. And that was totally insane, because everybody knew in Maidan also there were hundreds of journalists, and they were covering all the situation there, and nobody touched them except for the police that was on the other side, I mean, with Yanukovych. So yeah, and then when the war started, I was in Kyiv. I arrived in Kyiv just 2 weeks before the war, in 2022. And I moved to the contact line in Donbas just to watch the situation, because as everybody in that period, I was thinking that the situation was localized in Donbas, not in all Ukraine. And yeah, I visited some places, Shasta in Lugansk area, and then in Marinka, Avdiivka, many places. And then when the war started, I was in Kramatorsk, the 24th of February. So yeah, we woke up because the Russians started to bomb the airport, and yeah, I'm here. So after 2 years, we are still here in Ukraine, and we are trying to cover all the news and all the situations that are happening here. It's tough. I mean, I spent more than 1 year going back and forth from Italy, and now I at the moment I'm in Dnipro. I'm just having some 2-3 days of rest, and after that I go back to Donbas with a colleague of mine who is with me now.
Daniele.
Yeah, I don't know if you lost Cristiano. Cristiano, can you hear
No.
us? Because I can't hear him.
No, he just finished his sentence.
Okay, no, because it freezed to me. Okay, maybe my connection is bad.
No, it's to me it's
No,
the same.
thank
The
you,
video feed
Cristiano,
is
for
frozen.
this. Okay, he's back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry, guys, but I don't know why tonight
It's
it's a problem. Yeah.
It's fine. We heard your full answer though. It's okay.
No, it's
Okay.
fine. I mean, it's perfectly fine. Don't worry. So, beautiful introduction, and also for explaining us the audience even about the situation at the time in terms of perspective that we had moment. So now today. There's still in Italy kind of resistance from the public on there is some of still Russian propaganda that hamper like you and many others. So you think he's improved the situation, or is the same? Thank you.
It's not the same, it's different, because I think that also in the past there was a lot of ignorance about what was happening in Ukraine, and maybe the mainstream newspaper outlets they didn't understand too much about the situation. Now the situation is clear, but we have some outlets, some news outlets, some newspapers, and some people that are coming from the intelligentsia that are spreading false narratives, and as in the past. Because in Italy we have I think that we have a problem in the media. I'm talking about the talk shows, and in which there is just confusion and people that is shouting by each other, and there is the false idea that everybody has to say his own opinion So my opinion probably is really different from an opinion of somebody else that has never been in Ukraine, or he doesn't know nothing about geopolitical situations or international affairs. But in Italy, it's really common that they invite everybody, even my neighbor can go in television and just talking about Ukraine, and maybe saying that I am a liar. So it's really strange, and probably we have also an heritage from the past, because in Italy we had the most powerful communist party in Europe. And it's basically these people are against Ukraine, or they are spreading false narratives just because they have a rude anti-Americanism, and that's the fact. I don't think that these people is just is controlled by Putin, or they are really pro-Russian, but they are really anti-American. So if in this case the Ukrainians are with the US, and for them it's a bad thing, and so they don't want to support Ukraine. This is sorry with the Palestinians, but I think if the Palestinians one day will change position, and maybe they will be allied with the Americans, they will start to hate also the Palestinians. So it's just ideology, and they are trying to influence. They are trying to influence the common people in Italy, that basically they don't know nothing about foreign affairs, and also the foreign affairs in Italy are used just by internal political struggle. So yeah, there is also a lot of misinformation in Italy, especially because there are some newspapers that are trying just to spread counter narratives, and some of them are not from outside the mainstream media. So there is a lot of confusion, and normally the common people doesn't understand too much about the situation. And if somebody goes into the television and can talk about the situation, is trustable, because that's the way the television define you and gives you a position in charge, which you can talk, and you must be respected by the others. So yeah, the problem is in the media, basically in our media. I didn't see any kind of this talk show, maybe in other countries, in the UK, when somebody is talking about the situation. For example, in Kurdistan, there is just one journalist with an host, and they are talking one each other and just explaining the situation. There's not a debate and somebody that is shouting and yelling in the television.
Yeah, no, thank you for this beautiful view on these things rationally and also by fact, because you are there. And my next question would be, do you interact with a lot of people and a lot of other foreign journalists as well? And I guess that you may have discussed about this topic as well. What is their feeling about that? They have a problem, or there are other nations? Because from my as a spectator, essentially, BBC did a quite, and when they interviewed the Iraqi, well prepared, was able to counter the narrative. So even Sky News, I remember one of the first interview to Peskov was, I think I will prepared the interviewer was Peskov when he was trying to sell his narrative colleague in the field. Thank you.
But they have the same problems. If you see also in the US, there are some MPs and I mean some politicians that are spreading false narratives, and it seems they are really pro-Putin people. And so in every country there are a lot of misinformation. This misinformation is also spread by some fake news channels or websites that are just repeating the propaganda from Moscow. And unfortunately, yeah, it happens in many countries. I think most of the country in Europe or also in other places, it's the same story. But I think that in Italy we are the weakest flank of Europe just because of this heritage of the Communist Party and this anti-Americanism. And that's the point. In every place there are some anti-US people, but in Italy it's very common in the left, and also now before also in the far right parties. But you can find also some people that are coming just from parties that are not so extreme and are spreading the same narrative. So yeah, I think that this is a common problem that we can share all together between journalists, because all the time maybe we are doing some reportages from here, from the ground. We are trying to give to our viewers new stories about what's happening here, and we had to face with thousands of people that are just saying that we are paid by NATO or other bullshit. You know better than me.
Yeah, I know. And if for in this channel we do some information based on open source information or by talking with other people, sometimes it's very frustrating when you put hour and hour, even weeks of work to produce something that you, because we do this for, oh no, you are a liar. This is happened to me quite often, especially when I try to reply to people under Orsini that now that is probably a loss of my time, but it sometimes it's very sad. To another interesting question, and this comes from one of us, is not here, but he asked us because he's a very fan from Australia, and I was surprised that he read a lot of your. Essentially, he asked you, can you share about both? So your opinion about the Western independent reporters, which are so active, especially in the Russian propaganda machine. For example, in UK with Graham Phil, or in Italy, we have people like Andrea Lucidi, who was let's say interviewing POW. So, oh, sorry, Alex, this Alex, because we have two Alex. He's our Alex. He's the Alex in the chat. Sorry, Alex.
Yeah, their role. I mean, they are not journalists. First, they are not a reporter. They call themselves as independent reporter, but they are not journalists. They don't know ethics, and then they are not able to produce a simple reportage, but they are just doing propaganda. So that's the main difference. So I don't want to call them journalists. We have the same people in other wars, in the Syrian war. There were some people that went there just to support the Assad regime, and they did the same shit that they are doing now
in Ukraine, or before in Libya or in other places. So these people they're just. I don't want to give them also too much importance, because they are very active maybe on the web, and now we come back to the problem of the media, because the media wants these kind of people maybe on TV just to give them the possibility to talk, and that's the problem. Is not with them. I want to come back to the previous answer. The problem is linked with the media, because the media gives them the opportunity to become popular and to talk on TV or radio or in other places. So Andrea Lucidi and other people are just some kind of puppets that are trying to give a counter narrative of the situation on the ground, and covering war crimes and trying to depict the Russians as good soldiers that have all the reason to invade Ukraine or to fight on this land, but basically they're just some little puppets that are just working for the Kremlin. But I think that they are doing also freely. I mean, they're not so brave and they're not so important to be paid too much. I think that they want just to do it freely, because I don't want to say much more, because I became very rude with them.
I totally understand you, and I pass the question to Alex. If we may move on.
I only have because that question about those propagandists was from me, and I only have one small comment to add. I don't think that the issue is just with the media, but it's also with authorities that give them space. You see that Lucidi and Lorusso, they have been arranging events after events in Italy to show their movie and to try to tell people around that Mariupol was rebuilt, which pushed me to start with my own project. And that is even worse, because when you have free or public spaces given to those people who spread enemy propaganda, that's even more worrying, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right. The problem is not with them. I repeat, it's the media. They're doing a bad service to the viewers, to the people, to the readers, because if you compare my activity with their activity, you put all of us on the same side. We are doing you're not doing your job. I remember that when I was in Kramatorsk, the 8th of April 2022, and I witnessed the massacre at the station. I was really traumatized, and I tried to do my best as a journalist, because I had to do some live, and I had a live with an Italian television, and I was waiting. Sometimes you had to wait maybe 20 minutes, 15 minutes, because they are talking in studio, and you are waiting. They are calling you, and there was a pro-Russian guy in TV. He was talking about about what was happening at Kramatorsk, and I was in Kramatorsk. I was at the station, and he was saying that maybe they were not the Russians. The situation was unclear. And then when I heard him, I just say when they called me and they say, well, what's happening? I say, okay, this is the fact, blah blah blah. And then I said, I don't want to talk with him. Please leave the live and I connect myself after, because I don't want to talk with him, and that's the only way. I mean, you cannot do anything else, because if you start to talk with them, you give them importance, and that's not yeah, that's not right. I mean, and I don't want to give them too much importance.
I remember that service which was with La Sette, and I think was the first time I saw you, and I followed you on Twitter, and then I started, and that precise after you cut this, had a few minutes to speak about the lies that a lot of people were talking about, the 5,000 dead, which in reality, even going on Oxy, or understand that number is not exactly the figure that they even today after 3 years, but it's mostly military, and of course 3,000 people are Ukrainian dead due to the shelling of the separatists. But of course for them, shooting a very big number, and this reminds me a lot, what, Cristiano, what happened during COVID, where when at some point they were inviting people from the Novax community and maybe a couple of PhD researchers that dedicated all their life in doing that, and then they put them as equal. Now, I know that this is sound very bad, but sometimes you can't have equality, because the quality of the information that one side brings you is not put at the same level. You go in a restaurant, you order a very beautiful carbonara, and then you go to an UK one, and then they put you like cream on it. It's pasta, yes, but it's a different level. Sorry for this thing. I want to cheer us up, because this is
the
a very
Italian
sad
touch.
Yeah, you are right,
exactly.
totally.
So I know. I really, yeah, I'm really sad about this, but I hope that with this we will learn a little bit. And now I would like also to use this to move on to another topic that I want to discuss you, because you are a war journalist. You went on the front line. You work a lot with the soldiers. I follow you also for this, to understand if there is any unit that needs help and stuff. And my question, can you share about your experience with the soldier? What is your feeling at the time when the invasion started, and what is now? Did you see something change?
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah.
I think you dropped out in the
When
end of your question, Daniele.
Sorry. So my soldier, because you say, yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, understood you. Yeah.
So is anything changed since the start of the war, or something else?
No, it's not the same. When the war started, there were thousands of people that just came to the volunteer center just to help one each other. There were a huge amount of people in every city. Even here in Dnipro, there was a volunteer center, and every day there were thousands of people that were working, sending every kind of equipment, material, raising money, medical stuff, everything for civilians and for the army. And there were also a lot of people that just went voluntarily to the ZSU, to the army, just to join them and to fight against the Russians. Yes, something is changing, because every time that I come here, I met not all the people, the same people, but that I want to, to find my friend in the army, on the volunteer side, and just to have a feedback from them if anything is changed, even if their mentality is changed, their feelings are changed. This time I was talking with a friend of mine here in the Dnipro. He's a soldier, he's a sergeant in one of the best brigades in the army, and he was telling me that he had enough about the war, that he's doing his job. He was a volunteer before, a veteran from the Donbas war, and he told me that he told me it's time to think about my family, because it's 2 years. My children are they don't see their father, and they are growing without their father. And I think that I have done my best for the country, but I need to think also about myself, that I don't want to die at the front line. And this is one of the most brave soldiers that I've ever met in Ukraine. And there are other soldiers that are complaining about the civilians, because when they come back to the cities just to have some rest, when they come back from the front line, they see that people doesn't care about them, and they don't understand what they are supporting in the trenches. How is their life there? And they see people that are just going to a cafe and having fun, and they have to come back and fight. And they have seen a lot of comrades dying on the trenches. So it's after 2 years, I think that the situation is not as before. And also talking about the mobilization, the law about the mobilization. Most of the people, most of the military told me that they don't want the mobilized people, because they think that they are useless. But in the same time, they have a lack of manpower. So it's a strange situation. And yeah, I think that most of the people here, it seems that are doing their business. And it was like in the past, in the Donbas war, there was a war in the eastern part of the country. But if you went to Kyiv and other places, it was really normal. Nobody cared about that war. And now the situation, I don't want to say that it's so common, but I think that the people is tired, and they don't see an exit, especially from this war, because they don't see an end to this war. And the situation now at the front, I went to the Donetsk front the last days. It's critical, and it's changed these 2 years.
Yeah, thank you, Cristiano. I will come in with a question. So the challenges are not only on the battlefield, but during an interview on an Italian YouTube channel, you mentioned the obstacles and resistance you met while working on your film Crossfire, even within the Italian journalism environment. Do you see a change since the full-scale invasion broke out from that interview you made with the Italian YouTuber?
So the question was mine, and I refer to the interview that you did with Emiliano from Wall Don't Lie. And I remember very well that you were saying that you met a lot of resistance from within the Italian journalism environment. Your colleagues were working more or less against you, at least some of them, or the journalist corporation was making resistance to your work, which, I mean, journalists should work for the truth, not against each other. You should be all on the same boat. But I understand that's utopia. But yeah, so I was very hit by your comment on that. So did you see any changes since while you were working with Crossfire, and now in 2024, if the situation has been improved within journalism.
You know, when we worked about Crossfire, the problem is that there were two key people killed, and there were two journalists, and we just wanted to investigate about this case because the trial was not equal with the Vitaly Markiv that was jailed and condemned to 24 years for the killing of the two journalists, and we discovered that there were no proof about against him, and there was a lot of misinformation and propaganda in the trial, and so we started to investigate. When we started to investigate, we called also the Union of Journalists, because the Union of Journalists was civil plaintiff at the trial, and they didn't want to talk with us. And they say, why do you want to investigate? There is a man in jail. He's responsible for the killing of your colleague. Why do you want to investigate? Because the investigation that the police and the judicial was not fair. They did a lot of mistakes, and I think that is not the soldier is not responsible for their killing. We had to investigate more about it, and so they started to attack us and to defamate us, and the shock was that there was a guy who was fighting before with the pro-Putin in Donbas. He was in the Prizrak battalion. It was in the Ghost battalion. You know, it was a battalion of pro-Putin soldier fighting in Donbas. And this guy went back to Rome, and he started to attack us because he's a member of a communist Stalinist movement. And the Union of Journalists took one of his articles against us, and they published this article on their website. And so I was astonished. I mean, I say, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, you are attacking me using a foreign fighter who was fighting with Putin just because he's saying that the Ukrainians are Nazi. And that was the narrative, and that the Union of Journalists used this narrative just to attack.
Did we lose connection a little bit with Cristiano there again?
Looks so. It's the same for me. Frozen audio.
Well, I guess.
Excuse. So
now it's back. Okay, now you're back, Cristiano.
Yeah,
okay.
we lost you for 30 seconds there.
Okay, I just was saying that after that there was the appeal in 2020, and the Ukrainian guy was considered not guilty, so he was freed, and now he's fighting in Ukraine in the National Guard. But nobody asked to us any excuse. I mean, they didn't tell us nothing. They just say they just put a cover, no, on the story, and they didn't care, and they just tried to defamate us again. But you know, the situation is changed now, and most of the the media are on the side of Ukraine, and they're not able to attack us as they did before. But yeah, it was a bad story, and the only thing that you have is your ethic, is your accountability. And they try to defamate us and to describe us as you know,
bad people. And my honor is the only thing that I have as a journalist. So my respectability. So it was a difficult period at that time.
Yeah, I remember very well from your interview. You said that perhaps it was a very, very hard, but you have to be proud of the work that you did. I really enjoyed Crossfire. But so you met difficulties on that professional battlefield. But what are the biggest difficulties that you are meeting on the real battlefield when you are on Ukraine as a reporter?
I don't know. It depends, situation by situation. The difficulties that you can face here is just to have the possibility to reach the front line or to work with the military. And sometimes you can find some press officers that are not very good. They don't understand too much. And also maybe there are some problems with the central command. For example, with the Tavria command, it was really impossible. Most of the time I tried to reach the 47 Mechanism Brigade in the Zaporizhia front. All the time they told me, no, it's impossible, you can go there. So it's frustrating sometimes, because maybe you are trying to do good reportage, you have a good story, but you are really not able to realize it. And here, before it was really simple, because there was not so centralized line of command, so it was really simple to go everywhere. Sometimes it was too risky, because I don't want to say that nobody took care about you, but they didn't check too much. So you were able to go basically everywhere. And now there are some limits, and you have to respect them. But sometimes, you are a journalist, you want to do your job, to do your story. Sometimes maybe you are just dealing with them, with the military, and find a solution just to do your job. Other problems. No, I think that's the main problem. Here is simple to work. I mean, people is friendly. You can have access everywhere. I mean, I'm trying to go inside the coal mine in the next days, because I would like to do a reportage about women that are working in some particular fields, siderurgy and in the coal mines, because they are replacing men that are fighting on the front. That's the main problem that you can face here. And also, okay, it's about talking about risks. It's your job. You have to do your best in safety. So basically, I don't want to have much more risk that I can manage. And sometimes you are in risky situation, but I think that yeah, you can control everything if you are trained, and that's the main point. The journalist must be trained. They must do an effort course or some trainings about medical skills, and I think that this kind of training gives you much more confidence when you are working, and you must have also some colleagues that are the same level of skills, so you can how to say, you must trust them. That's the basic.
Thank you, Cristiano. And following up to this question, what about your current plan? So Now you are in the Dnipro, but what is your journey for this time, for this day?
I don't have. Sorry?
Daniele was asking what your plans are in the nearest future in Ukraine.
I just finished my work in Kharkiv because I went there to do some civilian stuff. And I covered some stories about.
Go ahead, Cristiano. Your
what's
word
my
is yours.
plan?
We can hear you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Dang it.
Oh my gosh.
He's reconnecting.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. What's my plan for the next days?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go back to Slavyansk and Kramatorsk. I'm going to meet some people from the National Guard and some guys from the International Legion. Probably I'll meet also an Italian guy in the next days who is fighting with the International Legion. And yeah, I will be there, and then I to go back to Kyiv because the 10th of May there will be a screening of Crossfire at the Maidan Museum in Kyiv. So if somebody wants to come in Kyiv for that day, I will meet you there.
Congratulations with that. You have to be very proud of that.
Thank you so much.
I see that we got two questions in the chat. Can we go ahead and ask them? There is one that is from Chris saying that appreciate these are completely different types of war, but did you, Cristiano, feel safer when you were reporting from Iraq than reporting from Ukraine?
You know, the difference is that there we were we were against some militias. I mean, the Islamic State didn't have airplane and artillery and so on. So it was a different kind of fighting there, and it was different just to cover the situation. Except for Mosul, in which there was an urban guerrilla, it was very risky covering the stories there. But yeah, it's really different. Here you can say everywhere. I'm now I'm at the balcony of my apartment. Suddenly, maybe a missile can hit somewhere near by here or in other part of the city. So the Russians are using every kind of weapon, munition, and it's very risky also going to the front line because there are a lot of drones. For example, there were no drones in Iraq. So, and here the risk now going to the front line is just to be killed by a drone, FPV drone, for example. And yeah, and that is one of the risks that I can face all the time because now you have to maybe to move in the night at 4:00 a.m. just to reach the positions because they say that the drones are not working well at that moment from 4 to 6, and yeah, and that's the risk, and that's the difference. The difference is that we are facing a so-called the second most powerful army. Was the second so powerful army. Now we are saying we are seeing that they are just
some wankers, some kind of a wankers, these Russian, but they are strong and they have a lot of ammunition and weapons, and they can use everything, and they throw everything on the battlefield also against the cities. So yeah, that's the difference, that we are facing some way a modern army that they can use any kind of weapon just to fight.
Yeah, and thank you. We have another question from a viewer from YouTube, from Kellen. Western mainstream media appear to parrot Kremlin talking points without further validation. They take Putin's words as if it's truthful. Why do you think this is?
It's a difficult question. I don't know. I think that some politicians just they want to find an exit, and nobody trusts Putin. I mean, even in the past, but in the past was well respected because of basically because we didn't care about what was happening inside Russia. The war in Donbas was a local war, and nobody took care about it, and the government just wanted to do business with Russia. And I think that some people just want to restart business with Russia, and they consider Putin as a respectable person, or somebody that can basically they think that as a chief of a government, the Russian government, they have to talk with him, even if they know that everything Putin is saying is just a liar, and they are doing this a lot of. They did this a lot of time, even before the invasion. They were saying that they were just training troops at the border, and then they started the invasion. So I think that nobody trusts him, but they want to trust him because some of them are trying to find an exit way to this war, and the only way is to talk with him because he has the power.
So I think the question is more directed towards, for instance, like news bulletins, like Reuters and other news agencies that forward basically statements from the Kremlin, and then you see them on news, general mainstream news websites, for instance. They just basically copy paste what TASS is writing from the Kremlin. We missed him. We lost him again. Damn Russians. I'm sure that they are the reason for the bad connection.
But yeah, the very interesting point there, saying about people who want to go back having business with Russia. I mean, in Italy, we do have thousands of small industries producing luxury things that even after the Crimea invasion in 2014, they were against any sanctions, because no, we need to keep the relationship, we need to keep the market open, and they kept those positions also after the full-scale invasion of 2022. And we even have some small organization of industrial people who keep their relationships open with Russia, and they push to go back to pre-war, which in my opinion is not acceptable, and it cannot happen. How can we go back to the same relation that we had with Russia as we had before the war? I don't think that will ever happen again. I don't know what you guys think while we wait for Cristiano to be back.
Like when it comes to the question from Kellen, I think that unfortunately there's a lot of laziness in the teams that are supposed to validate and push these news bulletins, because they have a pool of different news bulletins that are constantly being pushed. And unfortunately, TASS and other Russian media bureaus they have agreements still with major agencies like Reuters, and they forward these bulletins. And it is up to that is bad enough in itself that Reuters and others are doing that, but it is up to the mainstream media to actually have good enough editors that are sitting on the news desk and push these bulletins. And it is incredibly frustrating. I even see it here, where I feel that most of the mainstream media have a very critical editors towards Russian talking points, but unfortunately the people on the news desk are probably inexperienced and just doesn't have the right mindset to edit these things, and often you see pushback against these things very fast. But yeah, not sure if Cristiano is gone.
But strange, even my connection is lagging behind.
Yeah, I think we can start prepare for Andrew's update now, because I'm not sure if we will get him back on.
Okay. We have some news. Some semi-breaking. I mean, it was breaking news at one point today. But Sersky announced that Ukraine captured this little island here. It's downstream from Kherson. I'm not going to say it's a huge deal, but it's like the most positive thing that we have going for us right now. So we're just going to take it. Okay. So this is the positive news. This is like the only positive thing I have to say today, is that Ukraine captured in a little tiny island that's in the Dnipro River. Beyond that, Ukraine has a bit of a crisis going on, and it's largely a self-imposed crisis, because it's caused by their inability to mobilize enough troops, which is largely a political problem. But what this has led to, is a pretty extreme shortage of frontline troops in a lot of different areas. And this isn't necessarily caused by a lack of infantry. It's more so caused by the type of guys that you're kind of talking about earlier in the broadcast, where guys are just tired and they kind of want to go home, and they just can't really function as soldiers very well anymore, because they're just spent. They've been fighting, like some of them have been fighting for 2 years straight, without like any breaks, like just constant every day. And others have been fighting for over 10 years. So a lot of them are just spent. And a lot of these guys are older. They're in their mid to late 40s. And they've been sitting in a trench for 2 years straight, getting shelled and wounded. And they just don't have the energy anymore. And this is becoming a pretty significant problem, because a lot of the soldiers that Ukraine has only exist on paper, and they can't actually fight in reality. And this is becoming an ever increasing issue.
Andrew, I think we still have a problem with the map being mirrored on YouTube.
You told me to mirror it though.
Yeah, I know, because it was mirrored
it-
on my screen, and it's not now.
Okay.
Yeah, same here, same here. Now it's not mirrored. Prior to that was mirrored, and yeah, weird.
Should I mirror? Okay, you have to tell me. Should I mirror it again or what? What am I doing here?
Well, you can now mirror it again, so it's going back to the original one, and then we check if it's okay on you on because so far, if you can work with it mirrored and it's working for our viewers, I think that's better.
I mean, I had it mirrored because I thought I was mirrored, so I mirrored it to fix it. But then you told me to unmirror it, so all right, I will.
It's probably like a double mirroring happening with the software, and yeah.
Cristiano is back. Perhaps while Andrew is fixing the issue, we can say thank you to Cristiano and let him go.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Cristiano. We super happy to have you. We had some problems, but if you want to stay, then please stay ahead while Andrew is doing the update, and then on the end of the update, we'll you can even ask Andrew some questions. I mean, I'm sure you're interested.
Or you can just jump in and talk if you'd like to.
Yeah, just jump in and talk if you want to while Andrew is doing the update.
Is the mirroring good now? Or is it
on YouTube? It's okay.
Okay. All right. All right. So, like I was saying, there's a pretty extreme shortage of infantry, and it's particularly bad in the middle of Donbas, like basically all the areas that Russia is assaulting, but also in the north towards Kupiansk, which I'll talk about in a moment. But ever since I started following the war closely, some of the earliest contacts that I've had in Ukraine were talking about the necessity to build, to immediately build very substantial defenses behind Ochertena. And I just remember, like, in March and April of 2022, being told that this is like the most important place to build defenses, and it had to be done immediately. And spoiler, it never happens. They never built defenses there. And now we're seeing kind of the consequences of that. I think this was mostly a political issue. Again, another self-imposed political problem, where there was a lot of finger pointing over whose responsibility it was to build the defenses in the first place, whether it was the government's job to hire contractors to build defenses, or whether it was the military's job to have their soldiers build defenses. And if it was the military's job, where are the soldiers going to come from? Also, where is the heavy equipment coming from? Who's going to fund it? All of these questions were in the air. None of them were ever answered by the legislature. And as a result, nothing was ever really built in any sort of substantial amount. There are some defenses, but they're nowhere remotely close to adequate. And most of them are not really concrete structures. Like a lot of people are fighting out of foxholes right now. And it's not ideal, especially when you're fighting against drones that can drop grenades on you. So what we're seeing now is a breakthrough through the last remaining defensive line was between kind of the towns of Novobakhmutivka and Ochertena, and that was bypassed days ago at this point, like almost a week ago. It was broken through. There's varying reports on why that happened. Some people are blaming the 115th Brigade for abandoning positions. Other people are blaming the use of various sorts of chemical weapons, which I personally don't believe actually happened. But there's all these different kind of excuses, really, of why this defense was broken. But the fact remains that it was broken, and now Russia is exploiting it in every direction. The southern part of Ochertena is the high ground for the area, and everywhere in both directions is lower than it. So Russia has been exploiting this high ground to attack the two towns south of Ochrytina from the north. They've captured both of these towns. They are trying to press further west towards Sokol and up the railroad that they've been moving up towards the northwest. They've also been pushing north into Novokalovne and Keramik. There's rumors that both of these towns have been captured already. So what is kind of the goal here? It seems to me that Russia's goal is to create a pocket around Toretsk and New York and all the areas in between. And the way that you would achieve this is by pushing north and west from their current positions towards this main highway here that connects Pokrovsk to Konstantivka. And in breaking this highway, you would really severely damage the ability to supply this group of troops here. The only major highway would be coming from the north, and that northern highway is also under threat from the Russian attack on Chasiv Yar. So this is developing into what will likely be one of the largest battles of the whole war, I imagine. There's kind of a tertiary event going on where Russia is trying to breach these southern defenses near Marinka and etc. To go around this southern route to kind of separate Vuhledar from the north and penetrate and wrap around that way. So this is kind of a three-pronged attack that they're doing right now. So there's one in the north, one in the middle, and one in the south. Currently, the one in the middle is doing the best, but who knows what will happen to the other two. The one in the south is doing the least at the moment. They have captured Novomikhailivka. They're trying to push through. They've also been trying to push west of Pobieda, but that hasn't worked so far, at least not in any significant amount. So that's kind of the thing going on now. So the question is, how far back would Ukraine have to go before they get to solid defenses? And that's kind of up in the air at the moment, because to my knowledge, there aren't any major defenses between the current Russian positions and this major highway. There are like terrain features that you could use. There's some ponds, there's some tree lines, etc. But none of them are really major defensive positions that have been built up, like concrete, poured concrete defenses, bunker systems, etc. Those, to my knowledge, those things don't really exist here, beyond the kind of the minimal you would expect. So that's scary. It's rather upsetting that this is all going on. The ground immediately to the west of the Russian advance currently, there is this kind of river pond lake system going on that is probably a substantial enough barrier to slow down the Russians, at least for a little while. So the Russians going immediately west is unlikely, but going west wouldn't even be their biggest threat to begin with. So their biggest threat is going north, and going north is probably the easiest way for them as well. So that's kind of a double whammy of bad news. So yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about this area. I don't know. It's all bad news.
It's a lot of bad news, but do you think that the Russians have more steam to continue? Because in earlier offensives that we've seen similar to this, but maybe not of the big, as big as this one, they kind of run out of steam after a couple of weeks, and sometimes even they have to pull back. Now I'm trying to be a little bit optimistic here, but do you think this might be the same situation again, or do you think this time the Russians actually have steam to continue this for many weeks? Because I don't think it's going to be too critical if they roll out of Steam within the next 2 weeks. But if it continues further than that, then we start having a lot more issues ahead of us, I think.
I think in the past, Russia wasn't really running out of steam. They were running out of kind of motivation to keep pressing. I think that was more of the issue. I think they could have gone further if they wanted to. And in this situation, they have Ukraine on the ropes. So I don't really see that motivation to hold back. I think they're just going to keep dumping resources here. Ukraine is going to have to stop them somehow. I'm not really sure how that's going to happen. I think you're eventually going to run in some sort of defensive position that can hold. I'm just not sure where that is, and that's kind of the scary thing. And this is why Ukrainians have been calling for defenses here for so long, because everyone knew this was the threat. Like, this is not a secret. Like, this was like everybody knew this was Russia's goal, and they're doing it. And Ukraine didn't prepare for it. That's the story here. Is Ukraine failed to prepare for something that Ukraine knew was one of their biggest threats. So how do you respond to that? Like, I don't know. It's like they're going to lose ground. That's just the reality of it. They're going to lose a lot of ground, and the Russians are going to try to capitalize on that in every way that they can. One is dumping resources and to keep continuing to push Ukraine back, but also second, they're going to use their propaganda machine to make it sound like the sky is falling and that Ukraine is like collapsing or something, which I don't really think what's going on is a collapse per se. It could become a collapse. It depends on Ukraine's decisions. If they refuse to give up land that they need to give up, that could cause a domino effect where very bad things could happen. But it doesn't appear that they are doing that so far. They've given up like Berdichi and the areas to the west of it already, which is a kind of a good sign that they are withdrawing instead of fighting, because it was a hopeless fight to begin with. So in the past, Ukraine has fought those hopeless fights against better judgment. So this is a good sign that they are withdrawing. So I personally hope that they continue to withdraw until they get somewhere that they can defend without having to expend a lot of resources defending, because Ukraine just doesn't have the manpower to defend these places. They don't have the manpower to counterattack either. Even in the areas where they could counterattack, they don't really have the ability to do it. And also they're still lacking in all sorts of ammunition, especially Gimlers. The lack of Gimlers is actually a very notable problem.
So if you look at the past 2 months, this is basically a continuation of what happened in Avdiivka. It's the same axis, and all of the things that we're seeing now seems to be a chain reaction of what happened in Avdiivka. Do you think that they were basically not expecting Avdiivka to fall, even if it was signaled for months and months and months, and that's why we see this really bad, basically an unprepared or not enough well prepared defensive line that the Russians have exploited?
I think that Ukraine didn't think they would lose Avdiivka, and I want to make it clear that these events that are happening are not because of what happened this year. Like, it's not because they lost Avdiivka this year. That's not the thing. These events are happening because Ukraine did not prepare in 2022 when they needed to. You can't prepare now. It's too late. It's way too late. So they had to build these defenses in like April, May, June of 2022, but they didn't. And now you're seeing the consequences. You
basically don't have enough time, and you're under fire while you're trying to build defensive. So that's just not going to work as well as it should, or as it could if you did it a year ago or a year and a half ago.
Yeah. It takes like a week to pour concrete, and they have hours. They don't have time for that.
Yeah, and it's
So,
kilometers and kilometers.
Yeah. So, and this is kind of another thing. If they really thought they were never going to lose Avdiivka, how come they did a counterattack towards Rabatina? Like, they should have counterattacked Krasnohorivka. If they thought they were never going to lose Avdiivka, then they should have taken back Krasnohorivka, and they should have taken back Vasile. They should have, pushed Russia back up there if they thought that they were never going to lose Avdiivka. But they didn't. They did try to do some counterattacks around Avdiivka, and I really think that these counterattacks are why Avdiivka held as long as it did. But they did try to push west from Novelska towards Pisky. They got relatively close. There's debates on how close they got. They got within at least half a kilometer of Pisky. Now, the reason that they were doing these attacks was to recapture this intersection right here. This position, the way I've heard it named the slab. I'm not sure if everybody refers to it as that, but this is the position slabbed as I know it. This position was one of the absolutely vital defensive positions to hold Avdiivka. And when Russia captured it, which they did, I can't even remember when that happened, to be honest. It was so long ago. Let me open my tooltips. So they captured Slab in October of, what was that, 2023? 2022. October of 2022, right? So anyways, they captured Slab a very long time ago. And they captured it without a fight. Ukraine completely surrendered it. So they surrendered like their most one of the most important defensive positions that they had, period, without firing a single bullet. And that is very disappointing. And there's a story behind that. The commander who built Slab is the same guy who was ordered to not defend it. And it kind of broke his heart, but that's another story.
Yeah, it was on your map. It says it's basically 30th of October.
Yeah,
2022.
So they lost this position, Slab. Why was Slab important? Because it held the flank of Zenit. So Slab and Zenit were designed to work together. Without one, the other is very weak. So, but you saw Zenit lasted a very long time. It was one of the last places that they lost in Avdiivka. But Slab was there to defend Zenit. So they're supposed to work together. They built this line along this highway, and the whole area south of the highway was very heavily mined. So anyway, that Ukraine, in my opinion, what they're trying to do, I don't know, I don't have their plans, but when they were attacking towards Pisky, I think what their goal was to retake Pisky and then take Slab from the south and rebuild this defensive line around Vodiana and Pisky. And if that was successful, it could have really changed a lot about how the attack on Avdiivka went. But even still, these two positions in the south weren't enough to hold Avdiivka because they had lost Krasnohorivka in Russia's summer offensive in 2022, right? Or I'm forgetting what year it was, whatever year it was. They had lost Krasnohorivka. And if Ukraine was actually intent on holding Avdiivka, which apparently they were, they had to retake it, and they didn't. They just didn't even try. So instead, they went towards Rabatina, which didn't do anything. So anyway, that's kind of the position we're in. There were no defenses behind Avdiivka, like no significant defenses. Orlivka had some stuff. But that was kind of it. There were basically people living in basements, and that was kind of their defensive line. So, beyond this point, Ukraine is building defenses. Towards Pakrovsk, they're kind of building like back here. So there is some defense at some point, but they're going to have to fall back like 10 to 20 kilometers to reach those defenses, which isn't ideal. Obviously, it's pretty bad.
Thank you.
But also, it also points that there is. It's not going to be like a domino effect all the way to the Dnieper. You know, I've had a lot of people like trying to tell me that it's like no, it's not going to be like that. Like they might lose like 20 kilometers, but they're not going to go all the way back to the river. It's ridiculous.
Yes, we have a YouTube question. How do you estimate Russia's ability to field a larger mechanized assault given their high losses? Do they have stockpiles, especially newly built, same loss as estimate production or less as produced?
Yeah, they have their stockpiles, and their stockpiles are dwindling. They're not going to last forever, but they're going to last for another year. I have a fun fact. This is ridiculous, by the way. So far, in the month of April, and this is counting damaged, abandoned, and destroyed, Russia has had 411 infantry fighting vehicles either damaged, destroyed, or abandoned. 411. That's a lot. It's a lot of infantry fighting vehicles. I mean, there are countries that don't even have that many, right? Probably a lot of countries.
Yeah, these are the losses data for this week. Trying to give an update on them for as every time we can, because sometimes there's a backlog. What do you think about this week? I mean, it's been a little bit slower on the videos. Is it because of lower losses, or do you think it's videos not being released because of OPSEC?
There are losses that we don't have video for, but I think it's mostly because Russia is doing infantry assaults. That they haven't lost as many vehicles because they're not using as many vehicles. We know that Russia is building a reserve of vehicles all across the line, particularly near Tochnyi and also near their current assault on what's it called, Kislivka. So those two areas, they're apparently building a large reserve of armor. And also, I'm sure they're building reserves in Avdiivka too. But and this is why, like, Ukraine is calling on the need for Gimlers right now, because apparently they haven't actually gotten their deliveries of Gimlers yet, and they're watching Russia build these giant reserves of armor, and they would love to shoot them with Gimlers, but they don't have the ammo.
Yeah. I know that there's been maybe some developments at further west at Kherson. This small island.
Yeah, there's this little island. This is our little bit of good news. It is Ukraine apparently captured it. I don't know how to say the name of this town, Valentenska or whatever. This is one of the one of the towns that they launch a lot of their boats out of for their special forces and their Marines and etc. So they've expanded south into this new little island here. So yeah, this is it's just more river battles, I guess. I'm not sure how big of a deal it is, to be honest. I kind of think it's not a big deal, but Sersky was very proud of this, apparently. There is other somewhat good news, although I don't really know how to interpret it. In Bilohorivka, we got this video yesterday of Ukrainian soldiers in a trench line above the industrial sector. I don't know how to interpret this at all. We do know that Ukraine was operating in the hills just to the west of here. I don't know whether I should mark this as Ukrainian controlled or gray area. It's all very confusing. So But Ukraine has been operating on this hill for a while, and now they're apparently operating on the next hill over, I guess. But the confusing part is that Russia is also operating like on this little hill right here. So it's all a jumbled mess, and we also see like Russians attacking south and Russians attacking here. So this whole area is kind of a jumbled mess. Part of it could be that we get videos out of order, and I don't know which order they're supposed to be in. It's really hard to tell. We don't have high resolution satellite imagery for this area. We've been trying to buy it, but it's like never available. No one ever tasks it. So, but yeah, this is a little interesting Ukrainian video there. There was some Syrskyi also kind of hinted that Ukraine was doing some counterattacks in this area. So maybe that's what he was referring to. Not really sure. Russia is trying to capture all of Luhansk because they still haven't done it yet. And Bilohorivka is one of the towns in Luhansk that they haven't captured. And I believe there's also a few up in the north. I'm not sure exactly which or which. Kislivka, which is this town right here, is where Russia recently did what's being called a surprise attack, where they apparently launched a very large assault on the town. And from what we can tell, they captured the town almost unopposed. The people defending the town were a territorial defense brigade. That means that they wouldn't really have access to heavy weapons. They don't really have access to like javelins or ATGMs of any kind, like no tanks. You know, they don't really have any heavy equipment. It's kind of like a machine gun and a shovel type deal. So if they were attacked by an armored column, they would have a hard time. And apparently that's what happened. I believe the people here are the first armored guards, or whatever they're called. Anyway, they kind of broke through. They may have captured the entire town by now. It's hard to tell, for me anyway. So this is anyway. I think this town is in Luhansk, but I'm not entirely sure. But Russia is currently trying to capture the entire administrative border of Luhansk. Just to say that they did, I guess.
So we've seen these strange contraptions that the Russians have fielded lately. Some refer to them as the turtle tank. Have you seen many of those, or is it just a very, very rare occurrence? I saw some images that's from a workshop that I think it looks like they're trying to do like a spaced armor kind of deal with a net or a mesh before the sheet metal on the latest variant, which makes me believe they're actually serious about doing this.
Well, when you lose 400 infantry fighting vehicles in 1 month, you might have to start getting creative. So yeah, they've been making more. I don't know how many we've seen. It's kind of hard to tell them apart because they all kind of look the same, to be honest. We saw one get damaged yesterday. I don't know how damaged it was though. But yeah, these in my opinion, these are going to be a temporary solution for Russia. I personally think that Ukraine is moving in a direction of going for pure mobility kills on vehicles. They've been dropping more anti-tank mines from drones immediately in front of the tank so that it runs over the mine immediately, which I think is a much more reliable way to take out a tank than hitting it with like an FPV drone. So I think in a long run, those sorts of attacks are going to become more and more commonplace. Taking out the tracks and leaving the tank there, then you could take out the tank at your own leisure with like a vampire drone or a Baba Yaga or whatever. So yeah, I think this extra additional armor is fighting against an FPV drone. I kind of think that they're kind of zigging when they should be zagging. They're responding to the danger of an FPV drone threat, when I personally think the FPV drone threat is on the downtrend, and drones dropping bombs is on the uptrend, I think, personally. So, and those drone dropped bombs are a really big threat, like really substantial. Like, I don't like, if you are driving full speed in a tank and a mine appears like 10 meters in front of you, what are you going to do? You're going to try to turn? You can't turn a tank. It's you know, it's going to be hard. And even if you can miss, you'll dodge one. What if there's two? You know, so and also, what if you're in a minefield? Are you going to steer into the minefield to avoid a mine? It's not good. I think it's a much more potent weapon in the long run to drop anti-tank mines, personally, than to hit things with FPV drones. I think FPV drones are better at taking out armored positions, like a bunker or a dugout or something like that. I think that's more what FPV drones are good at, rather than taking out armor, which they're not super effective at doing, unless they get lucky.
So I kind of understand the desperation when you lose so many vehicles, but on the other hand, I mean, you're losing the entire ability of the tank to perform what it's supposed to. So I wonder.
It's not like they shoot anyways. It's
Yeah.
so rare.
Yeah, true. But are they at this point useful at all for Russia?
Yeah, I mean, when they get into a position, yeah, it's just getting there is the hard part. It's like, like, and it seems like they're kind of making tiers of tanks, where like this tier is the battle taxi tank, and then they have another tier of like their combat tank, I guess. And I guess maybe they were always separating the two anyway. Maybe they were using their junkier tanks as battle taxis to begin with, and then making your junky tanks, more limited but more survivable, is probably a good thing. And then they keep their best tanks for combat. Maybe that's what they're doing the whole time. I kind of think they were, honestly. So in that sense, maybe this is like no difference. They're just making their junky tanks more survivable, maybe.
Yeah. I had to cut the video there because I saw some infantry. But yeah, these contraptions are just, it's. I don't know exactly how to analyze it. To be honest, yeah, this is the one I saw today, and I'm like, you can see there's like a mesh here in front of the steel plate. They've welded another huge steel plate on the skirt to mount more ERA blocks on it. So they're obviously scared of, or they're trying to hinder mobility kills, which is probably what is the easiest you can do against this kind of thing. And then it's like, if it has a mobility kill, then the whole thing is useless.
Yeah.
But what baffles me, which tank is this, Andrew?
Can you zoom in?
I can open it in a new tab, and yeah.
What is that? Is this a T-62?
I'm not sure.
It looks like a T. Like, I'm not sure, to be honest. You think I'd be better identifying tanks than I am, but I'm not. It takes me a while.
I mean, they've mounted ERA blocks on the breech of the barrel. That they've mounted ERA blocks here. I don't know what the barrel is even useful for when you have a roof over the whole thing and you can't see anymore. This is something that I would never expect Russia to do ever, but they're doing it. So I don't know.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Oh yeah. Do you think this type of strategy on the top some maybe in the not
Yeah, Daniel Daniel is breaking up, but I know what he's
Yeah.
asking about.
And
Yeah,
Yeah, they've been doing this to MTLBs the whole time. That's kind of why, like, I think I found it amusing that people were like, "Oh my god, they've never done this before." They've been doing this the whole time. Like, they've been doing this to MTLBs where they were like chopping out the back part of an MTLB to the point where they were exposing the engine to sunlight, you know, and they were building like a shed in the back of an MTLB to kind of shuttle their cattle around, you know. So they've been doing this to MTLBs for a very long time. Now they're doing it to tanks. They're just turning tanks into MTLBs, basically. That's what they're doing. It's just an MTLB of a gun on top.
but they're running out of MTLBs, aren't they?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Didn't you say that you were seeing them less recently?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're running out. They just kind of like rotate between which vehicles they YOLO. It's like maybe it's T-72 time to YOLO, and then they get bored of that, and it's like, okay, it's T-80 time to YOLO. You know, they just kind of like rotate between. It doesn't mean that they're running out. It's just, I don't know. Maybe that's the flavor of the month. You know.
Well, yeah. But the MTLB, it's a really important vehicle for them, even if we're making fun of it. They're using it a lot.
Yeah, yeah. They use it's like their universal vehicle. It's just a tractor. That's all it is. It's a tractor. You can put things in it. You can put things on top of it. It drives around. Yeah, I mean, it can tow things. So it's the universal tractor. So I guess every military has one, right?
Well, I'm not sure, Daniele, how's your connection right now? He asked me to pull up this, and I guess I understand why, because he wanted to explain some of the losses on tanks that he identified from the FPV footage, and I mean it's absolutely incredible, and I understand why the Russians want to protect against FPV drones when the total losses they've had is just insane. And now we're talking since September, and we're 582 damaged, 86 abandoned, and 148 totally destroyed by FPV drones. Those numbers are just insane.
Most of their tank losses occur when the tank is already disabled. I just want to point that out.
Yeah.
So usually the tank is disabled, and then it gets hit by FPV drones. I also want to point out that often the role of the FPV drone isn't necessarily to destroy the tank. Sometimes it is, but not always. Often their job is to destroy the defenses of the tank so that you can go in with like a vampire drone and drop a bomb into a hatch. That's often how FPV drones are used. So not always. Sometimes they go for weak spots. It depends on the type of tank often, and the situation. So, and also how far you are from the front, because I think some of these FPV drones might have longer range than their bombers do. So it depends on a lot of factors, but often we see FPV drones going in to destroy their the extra add-on armor, like their netting and their little piles of scrap metal that they weld on top. The FPV drone will blow that away to reveal the hatch that you can drop a bomb into. So yeah, I see the FPV drone its usage is changing. I think it's becoming more and more of a secondary weapon, which I think is good because it is a secondary weapon. It should not be your primary. And in the long run, I think it's going to fall down the usage chart more and more. And it's not because they're getting less effective. It's because they're going into the role that they're best at. I think the efficiency of the drones are going up. And in that efficiency going up, we're going to see fewer kills because they're not efficient at killing. They're more efficient in other ways.
Yeah, they're really good at mobility kills, and to be honest, FPV drones are also really good at taking out bunkers and fortifications and infantry in them.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if we ever actually will, but I think we're kind of moving toward a doctrine on how to use drones, because it's been mostly kind of people winging it as they go along, in every sense. They, like, how do you train a pilot? Like, no one really knows. Like, what's the best way to use a drone? Nobody really knows that either. So people have been winging it, but I think we're very, very slowly moving towards best practices and maybe eventually some sort of official doctrine at some point in the future. And that will be good. to have a best usage, to have some sort of set way to use these weapons, as most weapons have some sort of best practice. These drones need that too.
Yeah, Daniela, are you audible?
Yeah, I have a problem. Surprisingly, no, yeah, I
Yeah, we
was
can hear you now.
okay, cool. Of Andrew regarding the kills on tank and in general on armored vehicle. And I mean, the other point that I also tried to make in the article is the fact that there are two things that says to us that this is the good way of looking at FPV at the moment, because the first one is the Russian response. The fact that they are trying to we mock them, but essentially these vehicle as much as they can in order to able to sustain not a javelin, not but FPV drones and drop munitions. And despite these defenses can be destroyed, and then but essentially you try to make the life pilots, and so you try to consume more resources in order to disable you. And most of the char tank have been damaged mostly. And on the other side, the Ukrainians are, and also some volunteer group, but also currently official producer of FPV drones are developing more dedicated munition for armored vehicle, but also for other applications. So it really depends on how this development will go. That will show us a change, but also the fact that the turn of artillery and other weapons like a plateau, so it strikes. So it's not just one factor, as Andrew stated this before, and I think really that one area where we will not see much change is attacks on position, because when you read some of the doctrine and article on showing position on fortified position build, each type of weapon you certain amount of shells are required, and most of the time is now you are not use like an Excalibur, so rounds to building.
Russians are in your internet connection, Daniele.
I knew about that. So you point is that, and I'm trying to close quickly, is FPV drones are slowly to become more an alternative or for a commander that needs to execute some kind of fire mission. So instead using artillery or mortar, which may be good on in a different situation, I just use FPV. To use only FPV, mainly FPVs for necessity. They have a lack of artillery munition. But as soon as these will be over, I'm sure that we will start to see a more ad hoc usage, and development of the dedicated warhead will go, enables the pilots to work safely, but also in a more efficient way, because those chart on tanks, most of them are damaged. The primary function at the moment is maybe to do a mobility kill, fences on the stuff, rather than a primary weapon against.
Yeah. Andrew, did you get the question or kind of the comment?
I heard it. Was it a question? I didn't hear it as a question.
Oh,
I
think it
thought he was making a comment.
Yeah. Yeah, like this is not the night for a good internet connection. We lost you, Daniele. So
you
I started talking instead. But
Oh.
this is Daniele's latest article. I think we're gonna try and do a separate stream on that because it's a long topic. But yeah, you could find it at tochnyi.info. It's a very long article and very interesting.
Alan, is that a link I see up there to join Andrew Perpetua's project?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. People should maybe click on that.
True. Andrew, how is it going? Like,
it's going better.
Yeah.
We have new people in the basement. At first, a few of them were, they weren't totally accepting of being locked to a radiator, but they got used to it after a while. They've been producing some good work. Yeah, I have more sleep now. I got like 5 hours last night, which is a step in the right direction. So yeah, it's all going great. Yeah.
Yeah, we're working on integrating them, and there are a couple more people that needs to be onboarded and new internet interviews with candidates lined up. If you're interested in being locked in Andrew's basement, you can fill in this form, and we will be in touch. Thank you for reminding me, Joseph. But yeah, before we kind of go to closure, I wanted to show a video that CJ highlighted. Can I get this up here? Yeah, it's very scary. So this is a drone that is apparently flying with like special silent motors and propellers that are supposed to be quiet. I'm not sure if that is completely true or if these soldiers just gave up on life.
Quiet propellers are a thing that have been around. I've been wondering why Ukraine doesn't use them more often, to be honest.
I know it is, but I'm not sure if that is why these soldiers just walk silently, or like it looks like they just gave up to me, to be honest. I mean, they must hear the drone. It's just 10 meters from them.
I have been next to a drone with those silent propellers, and there's no way you could hear it 10 meters away. They're completely silent at that distance.
Oh, that would be very interesting. Anyways, this really just it's so scary to see how the development is, has gone, and we talked to Dima about this because CJ was asking like how much what is the price difference, and it's not that
Dima
much.
at Wild Hornets, Erlen?
Yep. Yeah, Dima that we had an interview with, and we will probably have back on Tochnyi soon, hopefully. And he gave us basically some price ranges, and this is not a thermal drone. It's a light enhanced camera, and they're a lot cheaper than thermal drones. But you can do more or less the same thing, except like in very special use cases. So Dima basically said like, you can use thermal drones for hunting vehicles and troops in the woods. These are troops in the woods, but it's no longer a wood, I would say, no longer a forest. But most of the time, thermal cameras are excessive, and the price difference isn't that big. It's about $80 more. But also some of these cameras are more expensive. But this particular camera is just $80 more. They were just not available in large quantities before. But they are incredibly dangerous because, you can see this video demonstrates something. I feel absolutely terrified looking at this. Have you seen a lot more of these videos with night capable FPV drones lately, Andrew?
Yeah, there have been more and more. There's another camera that's worse quality than this one, and that one is getting used pretty frequently. It's like impossible to see what's going on. It's really frustrating to try to analyze it because it's basically everything is black except for lights. Lights are white, so it's like literally black and white. It's hard to analyze. It's like try to identify a vehicle based on the shape of its headlights, But yeah, it's those even cheaper cameras I've seen more and more of. In fact, I just broke out a video that had like 6 of them in a row. They're all destroying a bunch of loafs, but yeah, they're becoming more frequent. This quality cameras is a slightly better quality, and they're becoming more frequent. Still not super frequent, but more frequent. And then there's still the even better quality ones that I think are actually infrared, and those are also getting more common for Ukraine. They seem to be getting less common for Russia, although they might just not be publishing them. I'm sure they're still using them. Although the drone group that created and used most of the Russian thermal drones, that drone group, from what I understand, has been just demolished by electronic warfare, and they don't really publish anything anymore now.
Yeah, there was a question about EW, but I don't think it's easy to answer the whole question. It was like, do you have do you have an overview or on what EW devices Ukraine fields? There's a reason why we don't necessarily know everything about this. That's what I can say.
Yeah, we know more about the Russian equipment than we do about Ukrainian. One thing to note, right as we were doing this stream, I broke down a video where Ukraine took out a pretty significant radar station that Russia was using to detect Ukrainian drones. So it was an anti-drone radar station that Ukraine took out, and they took it out with a drone.
Was it the Gur video?
Was it them? Yeah, probably. I honestly can't remember who published it. I just know it was a warmate. A warmate took out. What's the name of that thing? I can't remember. I could look it up. I can't remember the name of the radar. It's a Repinik. Is that what it is? A Repinik. Anyways, it's a drone radar, a counter drone radar.
Yeah, that was it. That's the. I have the video here. I think that it's this one you're talking about, right?
Yeah. This is a war mate. I'm pretty sure. I think that's the UI of a war mate, and they took out the little radar. I don't think you can actually see the radar in this video. I'll actually see the radar, but the radar it looks like a radar, like not a radar. It looks like a satellite dish, like a little thing, it looks like a Starlink, kind of like a Starlink on stilts. That's kind of what it looks like.
But what I think is interesting is that they're showing more and more of this basically fire and forget drone where which guides itself to the target.
There were a few Warmate videos today. Yeah, they took out the radar. They took out they destroyed a house. They destroyed a house of a Warmate, and that was confusing. I don't know what was in the house, but they sure did. They didn't like it. Whatever it was, they didn't like it one bit.
Yeah, but this is a development that I'm sure it costs quite a lot more than the normal FPV drone, but well, it is very effective. and if you can, because one of the big problems with FPV drones is it's not necessarily the problems with EW, but it's also that when they come close to the targets, they often lose connection because of ground obstacles interfering with the signal. But if you have a fire and forget mode, then that problem is not necessarily completely eliminated, but fairly well eliminated, and that's going to increase the efficiency, I think.
I just sent you the link to the other Warmate video, and it's kind of funny watching the Warlink fly into the house because it does not fly in a straight line. Let's just put it that way. It's kind of a funny video.
The music in that video, though, I need to find a way to mute it.
Oh yeah, I have every video muted by default. I can't. I don't even know if there is music, to be honest. Everything is silent.
Yeah, it's really loud. I need to figure out how to fix this. But yeah, I don't know. Do you think that the kind of AI war on the drones is going to have a major effect, or?
I'm not sure. It depends on how it's used, I think. I don't think you're going to get like autonomous drones. I think at best you'll probably have drones that can do the final approach pretty decently. We've seen final approach algorithms fail spectacularly. There's one notable event where Russia was attacking a CV-90, and they had it dead to rights. Like it was probably going to be destroyed, but at the last second, the AI locked onto a pile of snow and crashed into the pile of snow for no reason. It could fail. It could fail really badly. But if you get the algorithm working right, it can work too. So, like for example, if you can reliably attack tank tracks with your little AI, that would be fantastic. If you could just have a flying landmine, so or if you could take out other weaker parts of vehicles like optics or things like that. So I think if you can make that work, I think it would be fantastic. If you're just hitting the general target and not pieces of a target, I don't really see much value in that personally. You can bypass various forms of electronic warfare, obviously, but if you need a human in the loop anyway, I don't know.
By the way, there you see the drone.
Yeah.
And this video is actually very cool because you see the surveillance drone filming the house, and then you see the approach of the. This is a fixed wing drone. It's not a.
It's a Warmate.
Yeah.
You see, it does not fly in a straight line.
No, it obviously has some control problems they need to fix, but yeah. That's so. I can imagine that they will be able to carry a lot more explosive with that, and probably also extend the range.
Yeah, and it's more EW resistant because it can glide. It doesn't need human input.
Yeah, that's a problem with the FPV drones. Is that sometimes when they are interfered by EW, they just fall. They just drop down. The props stop and they fall down. Or
There's one really funny event that happened recently, where an FPV drone it attacked a BMP-3 or BMP-2. It was a BMP-2 that had electronic warfare in the back, and it approached it at full speed. The electronic warfare killed the drone, but the drone and its death throws landed on the EW and blew up the EW. Then a second drone came in and finished off the vehicle. It's just so funny to me that the EW just like locked. It's like it like pulled the drone in like a magnet straight into itself.
There's another question. What will be the successful countermeasures to a Lancet?
There are countermeasures to Lancet that work well. They're just expensive. They cost like I've heard they cost $500,000 to buy one. Lancets get they get jammed and taken out by electronic warfare all the time. So yeah, there is a successful counter to a Lancet. There aren't enough of them because there's just not enough money. You would think that countries would want to, if you're going to donate a $14 million vehicle, you might want to also donate the $500,000 EW, the duct tape on top. But countries don't really think that way, do they? They're like, okay, we're done. Here's the vehicle. Good luck.
Yeah, and like there are also other things that I tried to highlight today, that there are anti-drone or counter UAS systems that are based on drones. And I think you, Andrew, were mentioning like this kind of drone a while back ago that just crashes into another drone. And these things have existed for a long time in the West, but we didn't provide it to Ukraine, and it's really frustrating. Yeah, and now the Russians are doing the same thing. They're doing like drones that can shoot nets, and they're doing the bulky drone that can survive crashing into another drone. And we're just not providing it.
Yep. It comes down to, generally speaking, Ukraine has superior drone operators. But Russia has more money, and Russia's trying to make weight with their money by taking out Ukraine's drones. In this case, they need to take out the Ukrainian drones because they're so incredibly good at what they do. Especially the bombers are insanely dangerous to the Russians. I mean, I think in a lot of cases, like, and depending on the use case, a heavy bomber might be one of the best weapons that Ukraine has going for it. Obviously, it can't do everything, and they can't really do anything during the daytime. They're mostly only used at night. But when they get into position, they can do a level of devastation that not many other weapons are capable of.
But the big problem with the Lancets and other drones, and not just the drones, but also missile attacks that Russia have been a lot more successful with, Andrew, that isn't the Lancet itself or the missile itself, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, and when I say that EW can take out a Lancet, it takes out the recon drone too. It takes out both.
Yeah.
Uh,
But that's the problem. It is the recon drone. Like the Lancet wouldn't be able to find its target, or at least not successful at the same rate at all if it didn't have the surveillance drone.
yeah, and now we have Ukraine has a new weapon against drones, right? It's a Yak 52. I mean, I have to be like one of the most outspoken pro prop plane guy out there. I've been calling for prop planes since day one. I think the no brainer solution here. But everyone seems to be against it. Everyone's like, no, you need a jet. Like, I don't know if you need a jet to shoot at an Orlan, but okay. Yeah, I want to see ever increasing more Yaks. Can we get some Yak 3s, please? I want a Yak 3 out there.
Do they exist still?
Yes, there are original Yak 3s that still fly. Yes, they break world records all the time. They're fantastic airplanes. I love Yak 3, but you could build a new one. Why not? You could build Yaks. Why not? It's just a Yak. If you could build it in 1943, you could build it today. That's what I always say.
But there are.
Can I ask one question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you know that oil refinery that was hit by Ukraine in Russia a couple of days ago, and in Mariupol's resistance channels, they published a picture of the oil refinery tanks being covered with anti-drone nettings. Have you seen the picture?
I have seen these pictures.
Yeah,
they're getting their own cope cages.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't seen the amount of damage on the refinery, but I don't know. Do you have anything to comment?
I believe what's the word? A refactory? Is that the word? They hit the refactory of the drone of the refinery, which I believe
Refinery,
is,
yes.
I believe that's the most difficult thing to repair. I think it was kind of funny when the Russians were like, we shot down all the drones, but there was a little bit of damage to the refactory. It's like the only part of the thing that matters is slightly damaged and on fire, but other than that, it's great.
It's fun that they try to cover the oil tanks with nettings, with a cope cage.
That's a lot of cope. You need a lot of cope to cover a refinery.
Yeah, okay. I guess we're trying Q&A now. I'm going ahead with this question, but Joseph, please help me because I have no clue about which questions we didn't answer yet. So, isn't serious AI for drones limited to reusable drones or drones for high-value targets? Enough computational power requires not so cheap chips, less.
It costs like $10.
Well, it depends. Some of them cost quite a lot. Like there are AI chips that cost a lot. And as far as I've understood, those chips are more useful for learning how to actually program the new drones. So the cheap AI, or not AI drones, but drones that are some sort of automation. So the AI chips are more useful for the learning component of it.
Yeah, I think this is more of like a semantic distinction, right? In other words, like machine learning can be used to implement something that has been in like missiles and other things for a long time, which is called terrain recognition, I think. Colby could correct me if I'm wrong here. Like they've been able to sort of take photographs of the ground and like match it up for a long time. This is like maybe a more sophisticated form of that, right? But you use machine learning to achieve it. So it's like AI technology, I think we can say, but as you said, I don't think it's necessarily learning in real time, but maybe operating autonomously to some degree. I don't know, but I know that that's kind of been a thing. We should semantically distinguish between like when we're talking about maybe autonomous AI and other systems. I'm not really sure how to quite say it.
Yeah, so the AI drones that people are talking about, they're not really operating on their own. They're merely identifying targets and guiding themselves to the end of it, to the target selected, basically. That's the stage
it's
we're
like
at now.
they're running on a piece of software that can recognize images and, you know, do things, and that was assisted in being created, the software, by AI, right?
Yeah.
Or machine learning is maybe more accurate.
Yeah. That's at least from what I've learned from the drone groups that I've talked to and read on the open source information. That's where the stage where both Russia and Ukraine are at now.
Okay, I guess we have a question for Andrew. Why did anyone of the Russian elite, like drone pilots, go to the pink ponies, Andrew? Or I don't remember the exact terminology that was used, but I remember the planet of the pink ponies was the. Have any more famous Russian drone pilots gone to the planet of the pink ponies, Andrew? Asks Matthew Whitmore.
No. Not famous ones, no. There is one Telegram channel. The admin was called on to assault a position, and then they haven't heard from him since. So fingers crossed, guys. I hate that channel personally, but he went out to assault, guys.
There's I don't know, Colby, are you with us? Because there's a question for you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Cool. Would the US ever order a THAAD battery for Ukraine?
No, absolutely not. We're finding how difficult it is just to get the Biden administration to even consider ordering them one new Patriot battery, and they haven't even done that. And based on the events of the past week, I'm not at all confident they'll even take that step. So they will not order Ukraine a vastly more expensive THAAD battery, which they wouldn't even be able to deliver to Ukraine for many, many years, because there's already orders in the queue, which are not going to be, no, Ukraine would not jump the queue. It would not be agreed to by Saudi Arabia. And THAAD doesn't even address Ukraine's problems. This is something I've said before. There's this sort of misnomer that THAAD is just a better Patriot. No, THAAD is designed to deal with a different spectrum of threats than Patriot is. THAAD has a 40-kilometer engagement floor. Perhaps a little bit lower than that would be a classified figure, but it's widely understood that it's around 40 kilometers. So below 40 kilometers, it cannot shoot down missiles. And a lot of what the Russians are firing is traveling far below 40 kilometers. Like Zircon, for example, is cruising probably at 30 kilometers, no more than that. So THAAD would be, it's very difficult to see how THAAD could even successfully intercept Zircon. So it's designed for much longer range threats, which Russia is not using or doesn't even really have. Russia is not deploying like intermediate range ballistic missiles against Ukraine. And this is why it makes no sense for Germany to procure Arrow 3 as well, because these systems are designed to intercept much longer range missiles in the exosphere or the high endosphere, I think it is. So it doesn't address the threat that is being posed by Russia with the munitions that they're using.
Yeah, and then there's another question: why is the White House so reluctant to give Ukraine another Patriot battery? And that's not just like the White House; it's like Spain has available, or they could also give or lend a battery. Sweden has Patriot. The Netherlands have Patriot. Germany already pledged one. Poland has Patriot. Romania, Greece, but Europe is struggling to provide batteries as well. But yeah, what is the official reasoning for the administration in the U.S.?
Well, they've never. I don't think they've ever really even been asked this question. Not clearly, explicitly. It's never. I'm trying to remember if it's ever really been put in a way that I would ask the question. Aside from the general things that we always hear about, just concerns about their own readiness, which is totally fair, and people hear this from me all the time, that the United States Army does not have enough Patriots for its own operational requirements, which is absolutely true. And I said before October 7th, the chances of Ukraine getting another Patriot out of the U.S. Army were close to zero. After October 7th, definitely zero. But setting aside all of that, and setting aside, the same concerns that European operators have, because most of these European countries don't have a very large number of Patriots, and only Germany has been willing to give any of them up. But even with European countries not having the same operational requirements, because European countries don't have their armed forces deployed globally the same way the United States does. So the United States has a real actual need for their Patriot assets, whereas I'd say most European countries don't have that same need. But setting aside all of that, they don't want to give them up. Why can't we just order more? Like, why can the United States not do that? Why can't European countries do the same? Why can't they join together and place a bulk order all at the same time, both for Ukraine and for themselves? And many European countries are placing Patriot orders for themselves, but why can Ukraine not be added to that equation? And again, definitely that question hasn't been asked to the administration, not to my knowledge at least. So if somebody's aware of an instance where that question was asked, please let me know. But this is a huge problem that nobody's asking this question, and we're not getting any response on the record as to why they are not doing this. And the Department of Defense officials, Assistant Secretary Wallander specifically, suggested that they would consider doing this after the supplemental passed, and then we just saw this week that they didn't do that. They announced $6 billion in new Ukraine security assistance initiative, a new commitment under that program to buy things for Ukraine, including Patriot missiles, but no Patriot batteries. And it is beyond me why that can't be done. It should have been done 2 years ago. If it had been done 2 years ago, Ukraine would already be receiving Patriot batteries right now, newly built ones. But it just hasn't been done, and it still hasn't been done, even with all this new money that they have available to them. So I'm at a loss here.
So there's some more questions about Patriot, and I think this one you have a good answer to as well. With the Patriot, there are so many batteries. We've read on stats, 500 in inventory and another 480 in backups. And this is a piece of misinformation that we've heard circling around for a long time.
Yeah, please, people, stop just reading Wikipedia. Or there's other people who are reading Wikipedia and then saying things on Twitter. I implore people, be very, very careful about who you follow on Twitter, because this is not true. The United States does not have hundreds of Patriot batteries in storage or in inventory, because if that was true, then the United States wouldn't have this challenge of not having enough Patriots for their own operational requirements. There are lots of Patriot assets, primarily launchers, in deep storage, because the United States had a very large Patriot force during the Cold War, but then it downsized. So they've got all these assets that were put into storage and are unused. So yeah, you could bring more launchers out of service, but or out of storage, but that's not the problem here. Ukraine needs more complete systems. A complete Patriot fire unit has got some launchers, and it's got an engagement control station, and then it's got at least one radar, and then some other supporting assets. And then the United States, their unit of organization for that is a battery. That's how they organize their actual Patriot units. But the basic composition of a Patriot fire unit is those components: launcher, radar, ECS, and then there's some other support units, antenna mast and power generators, things of that nature. So you need to have all of those in order to have a complete sort of system that can be deployed independently out in the field and shoot things down. A launcher on its own doesn't do anything. You can just plug a launcher into an existing fire unit or a battery. But what Ukraine really needs is more of these individual fire units or batteries that they can cover off more territory. And the United States just doesn't have they don't have all these complete components. They do have spares, and but again, they don't. From the U.S. Army's perspective, they just don't have enough for their own requirements, and the money isn't there to be reconstituting enough assets to fill out their own requirements, because just the money isn't there in the defense budget, because there's so many different competing priorities, and air defense artillery has not been one of those priorities, even though it's been pressing. There's just so many other things that have been deemed more important. So the Army's not been investing enough in growing their own Patriot force. So there's absolutely things that could be done, both trying to scrape together things that the U.S. Army has, or just giving away additional batteries or even a full battalion that is in service. UCOM has a Patriot battalion. We're at the point where they really need to consider just giving UCOM's Patriot battalion to Ukraine, because Ukraine is in very, very bad situations right now. And that wouldn't have been necessary if they had just placed orders 2 years ago. But because they didn't do that, now they're in a position where they should be contemplating these things that they shouldn't have to contemplate. Like UCOM shouldn't have to give up its Patriot battalion. But if Ukraine is going to survive, they need help now, so they can't really wait. So those are the things that the president and other European countries have to be considering. They have to be, they wouldn't have had to give anything up if they had just ordered new ones. But because they weren't willing to do that, now they have to really consider doing both.
Yeah, there's also another couple of questions about Patriot there. Does the purchase of the extra Patriot missiles at least allow for the manufacturer to scale up to that one per month? Well, I guess that's the one per month is the complete battery, but the missiles are completely separate production line, as far as I understand. Isn't that correct, Colby?
Yes, these are two completely separate issues, and they're two completely separate manufacturers. Lockheed is the company that is making the missiles. They make PAC-3 MSE. But the actual systems themselves are being made by Raytheon. So it doesn't matter how many missiles are being ordered. Raytheon needs orders for these Patriots fire units in order to increase production rates. And they have facilitization to do one every month, but they don't have labor or supply chain to do that. And the only way that they're going to be able to invest in labor and supply chain to make full use of that facilitization is if there are huge numbers of orders, not just one or two or even three or four. We're talking like dozens of orders would be what is required for them to upgrade their actual deliverable capacity. Because if you think about it, if they can do one per month, 12 per year, right? There needs to be more than just an order for 12 systems for it to be economically viable for them to increase their production capacity. Because if they just have on order 1 year's worth of capacity, why would they try and invest in upgrading their capacity to build that order in just 1 year? Because in the next year, then there's no orders to make that money back that they've invested. So there needs to be dozens of orders basically put in at the same time to give them the level of certainty that they need to make those investments. And this is the same situation for basically any system or any munition. Like for artillery shells, there has to be very, very large multi-year contracts being placed for it to make sense for companies to make really big investments in increasing their production capacity. So on missiles, there's a decent number of contracts that are going in, but on the actual Patriot systems themselves, there are some orders, but not even close to the number that is necessary for Raytheon to make that investment.
And then I think we're going to take the last question on the Patriots here now. So from Matthew, also on the 6 billion USI order, is it possible that the radars could be Patriot radars and that the US would later pair it with the stored launchers? So there's I think there's a line where they list equipment for integrating more radars and systems for Ukrainian existing air defense. Is that the one? I think that was mentioned in the 6 billion USI press release.
Yeah, perhaps it's impossible to know right now based on the information that's been provided. And again, because the media doesn't ask any relevant questions ever, these are things that we just don't know. But it's beyond me why the administration would not talk about that. Because this is something that is being asked for by Ukraine for 2 years. So if they're going to actually place orders for Ukraine for LTAMDS, which is the new radar that will be used for Patriot, or if they're placing orders for IBCS, which is basically the new engagement control stations that all U.S. air defense are going to be using. If they were doing that, they should come out and say so, so that we have transparency and understanding here of what they're doing, because they're taking some heat now over this, so it's not in their interest to keep that hidden. But I don't know. We have to just hope that eventually some journalists ask about it so we can at least hear what the administration's response to that question is. But I have zero hope right now that that's actually being done. I suspect the radars are just other kinds of radars. Most likely they're counter battery radars, not air defense radars. I have to go take a look at the list again and double check exactly what it says. But we won't get any more certainty on that until they are able to sign those contracts and publish the next contracting update. Will be the next opportunity to get more clarity on that, aside from if journalists bother to do their jobs and ask these questions to Department of Defense officials before then.
Joseph, there's a lot of questions, but we're now at 3 hours and 17 minutes. What do you think?
I think we go 10 more minutes. I don't know. What do you think, Erlen?
Okay. Well, so this question here is probably something that German aid should answer, unless Colby has a good answer for it. If there are any stocks of Roland anti-air defense, which could be sent to Ukraine, or have they all been scrapped or sold to countries not supporting Ukraine? I don't even know what this is. Andrew, do you know what the Roland anti-air defense system is?
I think I do. 1 second. I think I know what it is, but give me a second.
Yeah, this is a really good question, because I don't know what the system is even.
So yeah, Roland.
Oh yeah, I did know what it is.
Yeah, it's a Cold War era short-range air defense missile that was developed by France and Germany. As far as I'm aware, these are all gone. It came up. It came up much earlier on in the war. Whether any of these would be available potentially, but I think that they were all basically scrapped because it's a pretty old system. And again, this is, I mean, yes, Ukraine needs air defenses of all sorts, including SHORAD. So they're not going to say no to anything, but this is a pretty old system. And it's not going to, it's limited in its utility, right? Because it's SHORAD. Yes, it'll be useful on the front line, but if it's being conceived of in the same breath as Patriot. Like, don't compare the two, because this is not like comparable to Patriot or anything in that class at all.
Colby, when we say anti-air, do we mean like a missile or like a
it's a missile. It's a missile-based system, not a gun-based system. So it's
isn't it basically like a French panzer?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I guess you could conceive of it that way. It was. I mean, it had a bunch of different variants because there were a lot of different countries that operated it. So, pretty sure that there were wheeled versions, there were tracked versions. Again, it's pretty old, right? So I don't know how appropriate it would be to compare it to Panzer per se. But like France, like, they have Crotal, right? Like Crotal would have been the successor to Roland in French service. And now they have Mika, which is like their newest short-range air defense missile, or Mistral. So Ukraine already has some of those systems. So this would be like even older than those. And we don't hear like a huge amount about Crotal and Mistral in Ukrainian service. So it certainly would not be some sort of great system that's going to solve all their problems.
Yeah, and just for reference, these Rolands were sold to like third-party countries after a while, and even those third-party countries have retired them.
Yeah, that's the system we're talking about, by the way.
Yes, yeah, that's a picture. Thanks for bringing that up. So again, with all of these Cold War era systems, like their track record is pretty mixed, right? Like Hawk is a very old system. Hawk, there's been some issues with Hawk, to say the least, in Ukrainian service. So we're 2 years into the war. We are very much beyond the point where we should be talking about things like this. And again, like, I don't think any of them were even available, but these older systems were like, the things that we needed to be doing at the beginning of the war, because they were like the things that could have been done immediately, like find things that are still in storage and see if you can fix them up quickly and get them to the front line. That was an interim solution while we should have been buying and placing orders for all the new stuff, right? But here we are 2 years into the war, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's just one of those endless lists of things that we should have thought about 2 years ago or even before. And then I think this is a very important question, actually. How does Ukrainian domestic production and or Western production for Ukraine of mortar shells compare now to a year ago?
Well, their domestic production's going up, but it's still not anywhere near enough. Like, if you go by their doctrine of the number of shells per day, they need 12 million shells per day or per month. 12 million per month is what their doctrine calls for. You could really bare minimum 1 million a month, and they're not getting anywhere remotely close to that. So, like, their production is like, what was it, like 100,000 a year or something, or not even, when they need 12 million a month. So just to like kind of put it all in perspective, the U.S. production, I mean, I don't even know what it is, but it's nowhere near. Like, I don't think all of the Western partners combined would even get Ukraine to the 1 million a year or a month mark. So it's just, it's brutal. Like, we don't have enough mortars. We don't take mortars seriously in the West. I really don't understand why. I don't know how you can fight any war without mortars. It's like a fundamental weapon. But we just kind of like, I don't know, we look down on mortar men, I guess. We don't like them. They smell bad.
Yeah, I'll say for the U.S., I don't have the stats at hand. The trouble here is that with energetics is the key bottleneck in production of munitions.
You mean like
So,
explosives, right?
yeah, so when we talk about energetics, we're talking about both explosive filler, so the explosive, the plastic explosive, basically that goes into the artillery shells or the mortar shells, and then we're also talking about propellant, both just like at the base chemical level that you need to produce the propellant, and sort of just the finished product of the actual charges. So there's competition, heavy competition for that, because you've got artillery shells, you got mortar shells, you have missiles as well that are all competing in one way or another for energetics. So it's very difficult to be scaling everything up at the same time. You have to make some choices about what you're going to prioritize, because there just isn't enough energetics available on the market. The production capacity is not sufficient to fulfill all of these needs. So the United States, and certainly probably some other countries as well, but definitely the United States, the priority is 155 and missiles as well. So mortars definitely are not getting the same level of attention and investment, because doing so would come at the expense of 155 and missiles. And that is very much the correct decision for the United States to make, in my view. And as well, a lot of the U.S.'s mortar, U.S. Army's mortar and U.S. Marine Corps' mortar production capacities actually in Canada. General Dynamics Ordnance and Tactical Systems Canada is one of the main producers of mortar ammo for the DoD. It's not even there's companies, and GDOTS has their own facilities in the U.S. and there are others, but a lot of it's actually in Canada. In Europe, there's many other big mortar ammo players in Europe as well, and mortar ammo is easier to make than large caliber artillery shell, obviously. So there's a lot of players in mortar who are not in large caliber artillery. So in that case, you have one option about what you're going to invest in increasing production capacity in. So mortar is not quite as bad as it might seem, but again, because a lot of this is in Europe or in other countries, we just don't know what the figures are, because it's none of it is public. All these companies do not talk about what they're doing. We see on the front lines that there's a very large variety of sources for mortar ammo that have been tapped, but ultimately we don't know. Obviously, as Andrew points out, Ukrainians are definitely not getting enough, not even close to what they need. They don't get enough of anything that they need, certainly not mortar ammo. But there's a lot of sources there that have been tapped, because we can see, like, the people, the good OSINT sleuthers have figured out, based on the markings and other available information, where some of this is coming from. So there is stuff happening under the radar. We know that there's like Serbian mortar ammo that's turned up. Bosnian ammo, I think. Certainly Serbia, Romania, there's mortar ammo production there. XPAL in Spain, now owned by Rheinmetall, they're a very significant producer of mortar ammunition. So there are lots of sources, but it's not obviously adding up to what it needs to be. Yeah, the companies that are involved in that mortar ammunition production, certainly there's demand there if governments are willing to put up, again, the money to make the contracts, because that's the fundamental issue. There has to be money to buy this ammunition and to entice companies to actually make more of it, because if they don't have any orders, then they're not going to build more of it.
Yeah, RD Green had suggested that Ukraine is getting about a third of the mortar ammo that they require, which would imply somewhere between 300 and 400,000 rounds a month.
And Colby, this expellant stuff, like it, I know nitrocellulose is like an ingredient. There's like some alternative ways to make it. I know France is like trying to make more. Is there anything about that? Like you mentioned the bottleneck. Like, is there anything we can say about that?
Yeah, I mean, nitrocellulose is one of the sort of base materials that is needed for propellant production. So that is kind of problematic because a lot of that production is in China. I know that Rheinmetall and some other companies have spoken about their efforts to just buy up as much as they possibly can and build very deep reserves far beyond what they need on an annual basis, so that in the event that China decides to cut them off, they're not going to be immediately screwed. And there's definitely efforts to really build out the supply chain from the bottom up to ensure that we don't have to rely on potentially hostile countries for any component that's required anywhere in the supply chain for any of these key munitions. But overall, like there's just energetics overall is the largest constraint on a number of levels, whether it's like the raw materials that are needed, the precursor chemicals, the production of the the explosives, to the actual finished charges themselves. There's a lot of steps in that process, and there's a lot of constraints there. There's a lot of constraints in other aspects of the ammunition production, but overall, at least for the United States, but based on what information is publicly available, there's a lot of these same constraints in Europe. But U.S. Army's acquisition chief, Doug Bush, has spoken openly on a number of occasions that energetics is definitely the biggest issue out of all of them in terms of their ability to scale their ammunition production up.
Right, energetics. I've made the word expellence up. Cool. So I think we could probably leave it there, Erland. Or do you have any final question you want to address?
No. I think I need to go soon. Anyways, but there are lots of questions, and I'm happy about that. And please, if you want to send us those questions, maybe put them in the comments of the video when the stream is over, or post them under send them to our Twitter, and we'll try to answer them to the best of our knowledge.
I'm like Mr. Colby.
Yeah.
Sorry. No worries.
And also, I wanted to say, I'm sorry to everyone that Cristiano had such a poor connection. He's in Dnipro, so I guess they sometimes have problems with connection there. He said that the internet, the cable internet, went out, and he basically had to use his phone as a modem. It didn't work very well, and that's why he had to stay in the door in the balcony the whole time. Please, go and check out Cristiano's stuff. He has a very cool documentary called Crossfire. I put the links to his stuff in the description of the video. So if you're interested, you can go and look at his website, follow him on Twitter. These are some pictures from his documentary about this guy who got arrested and released eventually. I think we're going to invite him back and hope that his connection is better, because he's a very interesting guy. And he, by the way, he said that he was very happy to be at the same stream as Andrew Perpetua, because he's a big fan of Andrew.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I'd be happy to have him back on. I too am honored, Andrew. No, we definitely appreciate you coming on and talking about the situation with us. We tend to avoid the military situation in general on Tochnyi, because Andrew does such a good job with his map that we just point people to Andrew's map and say, check, if you want to know what's going on, look at that. So we appreciate you coming on Tochnyi and talking about it. Hopefully the basement will be filled with people who are mapping. It's because it's a big job. Yeah, and I guess just to our audience, like, thanks for tuning in. Please do like the stream, subscribe to Tochnyi, subscribe to Andrew, check out Cristiano Tinazzi's website. I put it in the chat there. Cool guy. We enjoyed the interview. We'll edit some of the tech stuff out, but we appreciate everyone tuning in live because we do appreciate your guys' questions and your feedback. It really helps us like understand what people want to know about, things like that. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your support, and I think we'll see everyone next week. So Slava Ukraini.
Slava.
On behalf of the brave.